Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. From today, we are starting a series of Python. This will be a Python tutorial series for the people who never touched Python or even programming, possibly. And by the end of this course, you'll have a solid foundation in Python programming. Before we get started, I want to actually give a shout out to Codin, which is our website. So if you want an interactive course for Python, please head to codin.com. We'll also get a certificate for completing the Python course in our website. So if you want to check that out, please head to codin.com. And with that said, let's get started. Before we start coding, I want to talk about a few things for why you should learn Python. Python is currently one of the most popular programming languages all over the world. Because of its versatility and flexibility, it can be used almost every single field in the world. We are talking about places like web development, data science, and current trendy topic, AI. Another good aspect of Python is that it has simple syntax, so it's very beginner friendly. Because of its built-in libraries, it is extremely easy compared to other programming languages. It is also used by companies like Google, Facebook, and Netflix, so in the future, if you're planning to get hired in those companies, you can use Python as a way to get in there. Now, to get started with Python, you obviously need, you guessed it right, you need Python. To download Python, you have to go to python.org/download. If you don't want to type this out, a link will also be in the video description. Go to this link, and you'll see a big download button in front of you. Click on that, and it should start downloading. Once it's done downloading, open the file. When it's open, tick these two boxes. Don't click on install now and click on customer installation. Make sure every single one of these checkboxes is checked. After that, click on next and check this box. After that, install. Click on yes. Give it a minute. It might take a while. After it finishes installing, it should say setup was successful. After that, close this. Now, next thing we need is Visual Studio Code or VS Code. To download Visual Studio Code, open your tab and go to code.visualstudio.com/download. Link will also be in the video description. Now here, download according to your operating system. I'm using Windows, so I'll click on here. After that, it should start downloading. Once it's done downloading, open the exe file, and here, just pretend that you have already read the license agreement. I accept the agreement. Click on here, click on next, and make sure every single one of these checkboxes is checked. After that, click on next and install. It should only take a couple of seconds. Now, once it's done, untick this and click on finish. Now, after that, come to desktop and create a new folder. Now, this right here will be our project folder where we'll store all of our Python files. I'll name the folder tutorial just for the video. You can name it whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. After that, if you followed all of my steps correctly, when you right-click the folder, you'll see an option Open with Code. Click on there, and it will open the folder with VS Code. And in your left side of your screen, right here, you'll see a small button that says New File. Click on there, and it will create a new file. And let's name the file main.py. What is .py? .py is basically the default file extension for Python. Click enter, and it will create a Python file. Now it'll be blank because you haven't started writing your code. Now we will, don't worry. So let's get started. And the first thing we'll do is to display hello world as every programmer does. So to do that, we'll do print. Now, if you didn't know, print is basically a function in Python that basically prints whatever you write inside it. Now, to display hello world, what you'll do is make a parenthesis and type a quote inside the parenthesis. But we will learn this in the upcoming video, so don't worry. After that, we'll type hello world. Just for now, just follow my steps. After that, we'll save the file like that, and we'll come right here and you'll see a triangle button. This is how we will run our Python file. That also says run Python file, as you can see. Click on there and it should say hello world. And that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check out coding.com for more interactive courses. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about something that's everywhere in your code but often overlooked: variables and data types. Think of variables as your code's memory and data type as its personality. Want to store a name? There's a type for that. Want to do math? There's another type for that. We'll learn every single one of those types in today's video. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, moving on to a very important topic in programming, that are data types. Now, data types are basically the type of data in Python. Variables can have different type of data. It can be a character, it can be a text, it can be a number, it can be decimal numbers, or it can be true or false, which we call Boolean. So let's start with integer. Now, what is an integer? Integer are basically whole number values. Those are the non-decimal numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, or even -1, 2, -2, -3. So these are integers. These are called integer data types. Now, what if we want to add decimal numbers at the back, right? For that, we have a data type called float. So float is basically a data type that is used to store decimal number values. We're talking about 1.1 or 2.2. 4.5 or like 3.1425. You get it, right? What if you want to store values like your name or your any character, right? For that, we have data type called string. Now, string is basically a data type that is used to store text or characters. We're talking about their name, let's say Alex or Alice. Another thing I forgot to mention is string is always stored in double, single, or triple quotes. So in this case, I'll do double quotes. So remember this, string is always stored in single or double quotes. So string, as I said, is used to store characters in a variable or any type of data in Python. And the last one for the video, the last data type for the video, will be Boolean. Now, Boolean is a very computerized data type. So Boolean means two things: true or false. It can either be true or it can be false. So in computer, it actually refers to 1 or 0 because, a computer has two stages, 1 or 0, right? This is what actually represents in computers. But when we talk about true and false, these basically fall in Boolean. So we'll be using them a lot during our programming. We'll be using in a few upcoming if else statements or loops, or any other kind of situations where we actually need something to be either true or false. Now that we know a few things about data types, we can actually move on to making variables in Python. So to make variables in Python, the first thing you have to do is to choose a name for a variable. In this case, I will choose A, and I'll assign the variable A a value that is integer, and I'll pick 1. So 1 here is a value. Specifically, this is an integer value, as we learned earlier. So here, the value 1 has been assigned to the variable A. So if I want to print this variable in terminal, we have to use the print function, correct? Up until now, we have only printed strings. So we're talking about values stored in double or single quotes. But A right here is not a string, it's a variable. So if you pass A, this A right here is not a variable. If I print this, it will just simply print A. If you want to print this variable A, you have to directly pass this through the print function, like this. As you can see, it will give the value 1. Now, there are a few exceptions when making variables, okay? You cannot use the predefined keywords to make a variable. As we know, print is a predefined function in Python. If you try to make a variable named print, it will not work. Let me show you. So if I change the name of the variable to print, and I have to print this, I'll do print. So logically you would think it will not work. So yes, you are correct. It will not work. Let's take a different predefined keyword. So if in Python is a predefined keyword to use if-else statements. If I try to make a variable named if and try to print this, it's already saying it will not work, but I'll still show you. As you can see, it says syntax error saying it's not working. So you cannot use the predefined keywords to make variables in Python. And another exception when making variables is you cannot add special characters and numbers in front of a variable. So if I do 2a and try to print 2a, it's already saying this will not work, but I'll also show you. It says syntax error. If I try to put percentage in front of it, it will still not work. But there is another exception to special characters, that is the underscore. If you use underscore, this will work. As you can see here, this is the only special character you can declare a variable from. So keep that in mind. So with that said, let's try to make more variables. So for now, our first variable here will be a, and I'll make another variable saying b, and b's value will be a float. I'm taking different data types. So here I'll do 3.14. I'll make another variable saying c. C's value will be a string, so I'll do codon. You can put whatever you want. And I'll make another variable saying d, which will be a boolean value saying true. As you know, as I said before, boolean takes only two values, that will be true or false. Now, how to check the individual data type of individual values? To do that, we have a special function in Python that returns the type of data of a variable. So that function is the type function. So if I make another variable e, which stores the type of data of a, I can do type. Type is a function that returns the data type of a variable or a value. I'll pass a from here and I'll print e, like this. As you can see, it says class int. So that means a right here is an integer. We can change it saying, let's pass b here, print b. Another thing you can do is pass this type function directly to the print function like this, and you don't need e. So it'll just make your code more efficient. I'll pass b. What happens here is the first type function right here will get executed, and the value that it returned will get printed by this print function. Let's try to run it. As you can see, it says class float. We can do the same for other variables, saying let's pass c here. It will say it's a string. And lastly, let's pass d, which should give us boolean. As you can see, it says bool, means boolean. Now, another thing we'll do is print every single one of these variables in a single print function. So I'll do print, and we have four variables here with different type of data types. So I'll do a, comma b. When printing two or more variables in a single print function, you have to separate them with a comma. So I'll do a, comma b, comma c, comma d. As you can see, let's try to run it. As you can see, it will print all of the values in a single line because we printed every single variable in a single print function. Now here I have a small coding problem for you guys. Pause the video and try it yourself. Let's try to do it. So it says to write a Python program that defines three variables. That is name, age, and height. This will be our name of the variables. And name here should be a string with your name. Age should be an integer with your age. And height should be a float with your height. And it says to print all of these values by saying my name is name and I am this years old and my height is height meters, which will be our variable. So to do that, we'll first make three variables, which will be name. I'll put my name as Coden, and we'll make another variable saying age, which will be an integer. So let's say my age is 30. And another variable will be height. So I'll make another variable height, which let's say my height is 180 centimeters. So in meters, it will be 1.8 meters. This right here will be a float value as the question told us. And we have to print all of these values saying this exact sentence by using the print function. So I'll do print my name is name. So I'll do my name is. So as you remember, when printing multiple values in a print function, we use comma to separate the individual values. So I'll do comma. I'll pass the name like this. I'll do another print and I'll do I am. So in between, we have to take I am age. So we have to first make I am, which is a string. Let's put a space and I'll do comma. And since the age value is in the middle of this sentence, I have to pass the age value using comma in the middle. I'll put another comma and I'll put the remaining sentence that will be years old. I'll do another print, and this time it says my height is. This will be our beginning sentence, or I should say beginning string, and I'll separate that using comma and pass our variable value and pass the remaining string. This will be meters. Let's try to run this code, see if it works. As you can see, it does. So it says my name is Coden, like the question told us to do, and I am 30 years old and my height is 1.8 meters. So this was a small problem that we did. Now let's move on to a very important topic in Python, that is operators. Now, what are operators? Operators are basically the symbols that we use to perform any kinds of operations between two values. So let's take operation saying 2 plus 5. Now this right here will give us the value 7. This symbol right here, which is the addition sign, this is what we call operator. And these values right here, which the operation is getting performed to, are called operands. Okay, so in this video, we'll learn about arithmetic operators. This will be the first operator that we will learn. As the name suggests, it is basically the operator that we use to perform any kind of mathematical calculations between two values. The first one obviously will be the plus, which is used to add two values. For example, 2 plus 3. Another is minus, which is the operator for subtraction. We'll do sub, let's say 3 minus 2. Another will be multiplication. For that we use asterisk. We don't use the multiplication sign for as we do in the normal mathematics. We use an asterisk for programming. This will be our multiplication, like 3 asterisk 2. Another operator is division. We represent it by a forward slash. Let's say 6 divided by 2. We write like that. And another is the modulo. Modulo or modulus. So this is a special type of operator that returns the remainder when we divide two values. Let's say we divide 6 by 2. Let's say 2 3s are 6, right? and 0. So modulo right here will return this value. Let's say another division. Let's say 5 divided by 2. 2 2s are 4. Remainder here will be 1. It will return the value 1. So modulo or mod will give us the actual remainder between two values. So it will be, let's say 6, or I'll just do 5 modulo 2. And another is the exponentiation, which will represent by 2 asterisks. So what does it do? Let's say you want to square or cube or raise a value to a power. Let's say you want to write 2 to the power 2 or 2 square, which will return 4. To do that, what we can do is basically do 2 double asterisk 2. So it is basically saying 2 square. Another example will be 3 double asterisk 6. So it basically means 3 to the power 6. We say it exponentiation, or I'll just write expo. And the last operator or last arithmetic operator will be double forward slash. It is basically what we call floor division. So when dividing two values, so let's take a simple division. Down here, we'll take 5 divided by 2. The output of this operation will be 2.5. But what if we do 5 double slash or floor division 2? So if we do this, it will only return the value in front of the decimal number. So let's say we do 5 double slash 2. It will just return 2. So it basically completely ignores whatever decimal number is at the back. I will revise again. We have for arithmetic operators, we have 7 types of operators. The first one is add, another is subtract, multiplication, that is represented by asterisk, and division, represented by forward slash, and exponentiation, which is represented by double asterisk, and modulo, that returns the remainder between two values when it's divided. Another is the floor division, which returns the only whole number value, ignoring all of the other values that are after the decimal number when dividing two numbers. So these are our operators. Now let's go to the computer screen and actually use all of these operators. Now that we are in a computer screen, I will make two variables saying a equals 3 and b equals 2, let's say. Now we'll use both values to perform all the arithmetic operations that Python allows. The first one is addition. We'll simply do print a. We'll do a plus b. So this right here is addition. We'll do print. We'll do a minus b. Another is multiplication. We'll do print a asterisk b, which is multiplication, as I said. Another is division. We'll do print a divided by 2, which is represented by a forward slash. Another is modulus. We'll do print a modulus b, and we'll do print. This one is exponentiation. As we know, a double asterisk is the operator for exponentiation. We'll do a double asterisk b. And lastly, floor division, we'll do a double forward slash b. So these are all of the operations that we can perform under arithmetic operator. And we'll do, let's run the code. As you can see, it will give me all of the values. So 3 plus 2 is 5, as we added first. And 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So when you divide 3 by 2, it will give you the remainder 1, so the remainder here will be 1. So here 3 square is 9, so we'll print 9 in exponentiation. And when you divide, it will give you 1.5. So as you know, full order division completely ignores whatever that is in after the decimal numbers, and it will just print 1. And that's it for today's video, guys. If you found the video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions regarding today's lesson, please feel free to comment down below. And with that said, I'll see you guys in another video. Bye-bye. Hello there! Welcome back to another episode of Python Beginner Course. If you missed the last video, check it out because we have covered some essential Python basics like variables and math operations. You don't want to miss it. In today's video, we're going to uncover the magic of strings in Python. And trust me, it's a game changer for your coding skills. If you have any questions along the way, drop them in the comments and I'll be answering them in upcoming videos. So what the heck is a string in Python? It's a sequence of characters wrapped in quotes. In Python, you can actually wrap strings under single quotes, double quotes, and triple quotes. So let's dive into an example, okay? So let's declare a variable and let's wrap this into single quotes. Like this, I'll say hello. I'll make another variable and wrap it into double quotes and I'll say world. Classic text, you know, and another variable which has triple quotes like this, and I'll say subscribe. Okay, so these all are strings, right? One is wrapped into single quotes, another is in double quotes, and another is in triple quotes. Now, what are the difference between these? Now, the main difference is basically you cannot include any types of apostrophes inside single quote strings. Let's say I try to do hellos, it will not work. If I try to print this, as you can see, it will result in syntax error. So what if you want to actually include any apostrophes or quotes inside your string? You can do that inside double quote strings. Now, as you can see, it works. I'll print this. I'll print this, and as you can see, it just works. Now, if so, what are triple quotes strings for, right? In triple quote strings, you can do multi-line strings. I can actually go to another line like this and type whatever I want. So subscribe to Coden. If I try to print this, it will work. As you can see, it says subscribe, and in another line, it says to Coden, right? If I try this in double quotes, it will not work. Let's say I do the same text message. I copy this, paste here. As you can see, it's already saying it is not working, but I'll still print this just to show you guys. As you can see, it results in syntax error. But here's the deal. Triple quotes are amazing to write multi-line text, but it's not generally used to declare simple strings. Instead, it's mainly used for multi-line strings and writing doc strings. We call triple quote strings doc strings, okay? These are special comments used to describe functions and classes. How to declare functions of our classes, we'll be getting into those in upcoming videos, but for now, just know that you never generally use triple quote strings to actually declare strings, okay? Just stick with double and single quote strings. Now, what if you wanted to actually add a new line between your strings? Now you can do that by a special character called /n. What it does is basically escapes the line after subscribe and adds the remaining strings after a new line. Let's print it and see. As you can see, it actually separates subscribe and to Coden in another line. So another special character is /d. what it does, it just basically makes a huge gap between the characters. It's useful in some cases. Now next is concatenation of strings, or it basically means joining two strings. So let's quickly make two strings. One will be hello, and another will be world. Now, these are stored in two separate variables. What if we want to merge those strings together? We can do by just simply using the plus operator. We can just simply add this, and you might be thinking, how will you add strings? So basically, add operator acts differently for numerals and strings. When you add two strings, it basically just joins them together. You can also do a small trick by adding a small gap between those characters to make it readable, as you can see here. You can also make the strings repeat itself multiple times. This is what we call a repetition, right? So how to do it? Basically, you can just print it by just using a multiplication sign. Let's take the value a, which has the value hello. Let's multiply it by 3 times. And as you can see, it prints hello 3 times. Now let's move on to common string methods. So common string methods are the actual string methods you actually use to manipulate string. Now, the first method, for like a small example I can show, is the upper function. So what upper function does is basically changes your alphabetical string into uppercase. Like let's say I declare a variable here. I declare a variable a which has this string hello, right? What if in the output I want to change it into uppercase? I can do that by using the upper function. So how to use it? I can just do a equals a dot upper, right? Store that into another variable and print b. If I run this, as you can see, it's converted hello, which is in lowercase, into uppercase hello. So now you might be thinking to yourself is, if there is an upper function, there has to be a lower function too, right? If you're thinking that, you're absolutely correct. There's also a lower function. Let me comment this part out. And let me show you how a lower function works. It's basically exactly the same as upper function. But let's say I do b. I'll show you a different method to doing it, okay? So I'll declare a variable a again. And it has the value hello in uppercase. So instead of making another variable like here, I can directly use the lower function here, right? I can do lower like this and print a, and it will give me a lowercase hello, as you can see here. Another string method I want to show you guys is the replace function. So replace function basically just replaces characters in your string. So I'll make a header for replace function. So I'll show you what is a replace function. So let's declare a string, which is hello, again, why not? And make a variable b, which has the string manipulation stored. So we have a dot replace, that's how you do it, add lower and upper, right? The first value you pass will be the character you want to change. Here, in my case, let's say I want to change e, right? I'll give e in quotes because e is a string, right? I use a comma after the string, and this is the value that you want to change the character with. So let's say I want to change the character e in hello with f, right? I do that. I'll print b. So I'll print b. Let's run the code. As you can see, it changed the e in hello to an f. Now, you might be thinking, can I do that directly here? Yes, you're right, you can do that. Let's cut that, paste there, close this, print a, and let's print that. As you can see, it works. So you can do that, either way is fine, but this one's more efficient because it's printing in single line. Now, last topic for the video is formatted strings. So what are formatted strings? Formatted strings are a way to actually manipulate strings by adding variable values inside a string. So you can use that by, let's say I want to print something, right? I want to print something like my age is something. So what if we can dynamically change value of age in this string by using a variable value? You can do that, right? Let's say that I have a value in a variable that is 25. So 25 is stored in A. What if I can just change the value of the variable here, which will reflect inside my string? I can do that by using formatted string. So the syntax of actually making a formatted string will be adding an f in front of the string and passing the actual name of the variable inside a curly braces. Okay, make sure you remember this. Now if I do that, now let's say I print this. As you can see, the value 25 is inside the string. So it's saying my age is 25. Now, if I change the value of the variable, let's say I change it to 30, all right? It will dynamically change, as you can see here. Now here I have a small problem that compiles few things we have learned in this video. So first it's saying print name and age of a person in uppercase using f string, right? We can do that by first declaring a variable and storing the name of the person. Here let's say it's Alice, random name, and let's say her age is 30, right? Let's say her age is 30. Now we can print by using f string. It says to print in f string. Now let's say her name is whatever value of a is, which is the name. Let's actually change the name of the variable to name just to make it more meaningful, and b to age just to make it more meaningful, right? Now here I will also have to change the variable name, which will be name. Any value stored in the name will be displayed here. And her age is 30. Now 30 will be stored here, right? Another thing is asking for is uppercase. So we have to change the name of the person uppercase. You can just do that by just doing the upper function right here, and it should do the trick. As you can see, it's printing her name is Alice, which is in uppercase, and her age is 30, which we actually took here. And that's it for today, guys. If you have any problems or doubts regarding today's course, please leave them in the comments below. I'll make sure to almost answer every single question I can. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Hey guys, before starting the video, I want to give a quick shout out to our website coding.com. If you want interactive programming courses with various languages, please check out coding.com. You also get a certificate at end of each course, which you can put in your resume. So with that said, let's get started. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So in this video, we'll be talking about input functions. Now, what are input functions? Input function is a function that is used to actually take any sort of input from the user. I'll give you a quick example on how it's done. You start by typing input, that's the keyword, right? You put a small bracket and a string to start whatever you want to write. Let's say I want to take the name of the user, so I'll say enter your name. I'll put a colon and a space just to make it more clean. And I'll store this in a variable, right? So we're storing whatever the input that is given by the user on the variable A. And I'll print this variable just to, make sure it is displayed in our terminal. I will print A, I will save it, and I'll run the code. As you can see, it's asking me for an input. So I'll put code in, as you can see, and I hit enter. After that, as you can see, it's printing whatever I wrote. Now this is input functions. Input functions are used when you have to take any sort of input from the user, let's say name, age, I don't know, student ID number, anything. Now, as you remember, in the last video, we actually learned about formatted strings or F strings. Now, let's try to implement it in our code, right? So for that, I will put F for F string. And let's say I want to print hello and user's name. So I can do hello, put curly braces to actually change it to variable. And let's also put how are you, right? So let's print it. Now, as you can see, it's asking me for the input. So I'll give code in again. And as you can see, it's saying hello Coden, how are you? Now, this is for strings, right? By default, input function always takes input as a string. So what if you want to take input as an integer or float, right? For that, you can actually put a function in front of input, which is int, right? As you can see, I will enclose it. So one small bracket is for int function and another is for input. So there are two brackets, right? Don't forget it. Now for that, we have to change this f string. I will change it to this is your number. I'll put the variable value. Also change this into your number. Now after saying that, let's try to run this. Let's give a number. Let's give 25. As you can see, it's running. It's saying this is your number 25 as we printed it right here. Now, as you can see, this is actually taking input from the user as an integer, right? What happens if I change it to any other data type? Let's actually give it a character. So let's type coding here again. As you can see, it actually throws you an error because this value that we inputted is not an integer, it's a string or it's a character, right? So when you actually define or when you actually declare an input, make sure to actually have a clear understanding of what you're doing and how will the actual program work. Because let's say that if you try to put int, like let's say I do a plus 20 here, it will actually work. Let's say I put 20. So as you can see, it actually adds it with 20, right? Let's say I change this to only input. Now this is converting it into string. It is not taking input as an integer, but as a string. Now let's see what happens if I try to execute this code. Let's give it an actual number. So let's give 20 again. As you can see, it also again gives you an error because you cannot add a string with a number, or you cannot add a string with an integer, right? Now, let's combine everything we have learned and actually create a simple program that actually incorporates all the things we have learned. So we'll create a program that takes the user's first and last name and age and prints hello full name. In 5 years, you will be future age years old. So here we have to first take the full name, first and last name, and we have to add 5 when actually printing it. So we can do that by taking the first and last name. So we can do name, and we can do input. We'll be inputting it as a string, so you don't have to add any sort of conversion. So let's say enter your full name. You can do that. We also need their age, so let's put age. Now age is an integer, so actually I will be converting it into int right here. As you can see here, so enter your age. Now we have to print all of this in a single print function while also adding 5 years to the actual user's age, right? You can do that by using f strings. So let's copy this line right here. Now let's actually make a few modifications here. So here, instead of full name, I will give the variable's name, which is name, which actually stores the full name of the user. And I'll change this to our age. But since we have to give the user his age after 5 years, I'll also add +5. Now while doing this, I'll run this. Now let's say Anthony Oliver, right? Press enter, and let's say his age is 35. As you can see, it's working. Hello, Anthony Oliver. In 5 years, you will be 40. So it actually works. So this was for today, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button and actually subscribe to the channel. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Have you ever wondered why your phone never gets unlocked with the wrong password? Like, how does it even know that you entered the wrong one? That's where conditional statements come in. I welcome you to the 5th episode of our Python beginner course, and today's video is about conditional statements. Let's get started. Now, let's try to understand what are conditional statements. Now, conditional statements are basically some statements that work on a given condition and lets the computer make decisions. Now, I will actually explain this with a real life scenario, right? Let's say that you wake up one day and you open your curtains, right? It's raining outside. So you have to get to work. Now, as it is, you cannot leave the house, right? You need an umbrella. So here, the condition here is rain because it's raining outside, right? And your decision is to take the umbrella, right? This is what we call a conditional statements. Now you can do this in Python as well. You can actually let the computer choose the decision according to the condition. So now let's move on to VS Code and I'll show an example. Now let's see how to write a conditional statement. So to write a conditional statement, you need 3 keywords. One is if. So it basically means if something is true, then execute that code. Another is elif, meaning else if. So if this is not true, run this. If you don't understand what I'm saying, I will explain in a bit when we actually write conditional statements, so don't worry. And the last keyword that you use to write conditional statements is else. So these 3 will be your foundation of writing conditional statements. So we also have a few operators that we often use in conditional statements that we call comparison operators. So these are double equals to. So this is used, you know how we use the equal to operator to assign a value to a variable. We use double equals to check if a is equal to 4. So let's say a is equals to 4 and we'll print a double equals to 4. So the difference between these two is basically here, the value 4 is getting assigned to a. But in this, basically it is checking if a is equal to 4. So if it is, it will return true. All of the comparison operators will return true or false. So they'll give the output in Boolean. So if I run this, as you can see, it will say true because a is in fact equal to 4. So the first one is double equals to, another is greater than. So as the operator suggests, it basically checks if any value is greater than another value. Now another is less than. It will check value is less than another value, and another is greater than equals to, and another is less than equal to. And the last comparison operator is not equal to. So let's say if we give a value 5, we assign the value 5 to A, and we check if A is not in fact equal to 4. So it's basically, is A equal to 4? If it's not, the exclamation mark, it basically resembles not in programming. So if it's checking if A is not equal to 4, in this case, it's not, because A equals to 5. So in this case, it will return true. If A is equal to 4, so in this case, it will return false, because A is in fact equal to 4. I'll give you a quick example of every single one of these comparison operators. So let's say 3 is greater than 2. In this case, it will return true. Let me comment this part out. So if I run this, as you can see, it will say true, because 3 is in fact greater than 2. We can do print 3 is less than 2. In this case, it will return false, because 3 is not less than 2. As you can see, after that, we'll do 3 greater than equals to 2. In this case, it will return true, because 3 is in fact greater than equal to 2. So if you put 3 here, it will in fact return true, because 3 is greater and equals to 3, as you can see here. So after that, same goes for here. It will return false, because 3 is not in fact less than equals to 2. So with that, we can finally start writing our conditional statements. So we'll make a small program that basically checks if the password entered by the user is in fact correct or not. So what we'll do is basically, I will make a title saying password checker, I guess. So first, let me comment this part out. So first, we'll take the input from the user saying the password. We'll take input saying enter your password. We'll do that. So this is where the user will enter his password. After that, what we'll do is basically to check if password is correct. To do that, we use the if-else statement. What we'll do is basically say if password is equal to, as we know, this operator is used to check the values between the variable or the actual value. So in this case, let's say the correct password, which the password will be compared to, is, let's say, pass123. So it's saying if password is equal to pass123, then use a semicolon right after you end your if statement. So we're checking if password is correct to pass123, then print correct password, you can log in. So this will be a string that will get displayed after the user enters the right password. But what if the user enters the wrong password? To do that, we use else. If else gets rejected, that means password is not correct to pass123. This right here, it returns a Boolean value, so it'll be false if user does not enter the right password. Then it will go to else. And if user is wrong, then we'll do invalid password. Let's check. So if we run the code, first I will give pass123, which is our correct password. It will say correct password, you can log in. So what happens here is basically first the user inputs the password, and after that the if statement will get executed saying the password, which is the variable. It will check if it is equal to pass123. If it is, this line of code will get executed. Now you might be thinking, what is this? Why is there a big space after the if statement? So this is what we call an indentation. So indentation is very important in Python not only to make your code readable, it is also required syntax-wise. So if I remove this indentation and try to run the code, it will just say indentation error. So it basically means this print statement is inside this if statement. If password is not correct to pass123, this operation right here will return false. So fun fact, if statement will get executed if whatever operation or condition that is inside the if statement returns true. So overall, all the operations inside the if statement should return true in order for the code inside the if statement to get executed. If I completely change this to true, it will run. And let's say if I do whatever password we enter, it will still run the true statement because we have set the universal condition of the if statement as true. Now let's move on to understanding what is elif statement. So to understand elif statement, I will make a small program that basically kind of checks the weather. So what I'll do is basically, I'll just say checking weather as a topic. So first, I'll declare a variable saying temperature or temp. The initial value of the temperature will be 15. Just understand that outside is 15 degrees, right? I'll check if temp is greater than 30. So in case if temp is greater than 30, what I'll do is print it's hot outside. So it's hot outside. And now I have said one condition in if statement saying temp is greater than 30. Now here I need to set another condition. What if temp is greater than 20, right? I can do that by using elif temp is greater than 20. We do this because else does not allow any condition. Else is a condition that comes if none of the condition here gets satisfied. We'll do print. We'll do if it is greater than 20 degrees, we'll do it's warm. Elif, if temp is greater than 10, we'll do is basically print it's cold. So according to our program, it should return print is cold. But I will also include an else statement just in case if I change the value of temp, if none of the condition here gets satisfied, it will come to this else block. And it will do it's very, very cold. So after that, I'll run the code and it should say it's cold. So you might be noticing a pattern that I have used the value of the temperature in descending order. We do that to prevent that when a value is taken, let's say if I take 15, but if I give like 10, 20, and 30, and now this is in ascending order, right? So if I take a value, let's say 45, now I will still print this value because after 45 is assigned to temp, it will come here. Since 45 is still greater than 10, it will directly print this value, not even checking all of these values. So how print statement work is if it finds the first ever condition true, it will just execute whatever code that is inside that if statement or elif statement, okay? It will completely ignore any other conditions. That's why we use in descending order. But there is another way of doing it. We can use logical operators. So logical operators are three types. One is AND or NOT. So these three are logical operators. Now, let me show you by giving an individual example of all three of these. Comment this part out and say got this. So first, I'll show an example of AND. I'll do print. So AND is an operator that combines two comparison operation. So we'll do 4 is greater than 2 and 5 is greater than 3. So here we have two comparison operations. AND is kind of a logical operator that will only return true if both of these comparison operation will return true. If even one of these comparison operations return false, then whole operation will result to false. So here 4 is greater than 2, this will return true. 5 is greater than 3, this will also return true. So it should return true, and there you go. Let's say if I do 5 is greater than 6. Now here, as you know, this statement here is false. So if I try to run this, it will return false, because even if 4 is in fact greater than 2, 5 is not greater than 6. So this will return to false. Now that's not the case for OR. So if I put OR here, so in OR, even if one of these comparison operation will return true, the whole operation will result to true. In this case, it will return true. And if both of these are false, this will result to false. As you can see, if I do 1 is greater than 2, as you can see, it will say false because both of these conditions are false. So for not, basically what we'll do is basically, let's say if I do, let's say print 2 is greater than 3. As you know, this is false. But if I do not, if I put a not in front of it, it will just basically invert the value, saying it's true. So not basically acts as an inverter. So if it's true, it will make it false. If it's false, it will make it true. So now that we know what our logical operator, let's try to implement in this code. Let's uncomment this, and I'll cut this. So previously we had to use in descending order like this, right? In order for the code to function. Now what we can do is basically put temp if temp is greater than 10 and temp is less than 20. I'll do temp is less than or equals to 20. So basically check if temp is greater than 10 and temp is less than 20. So it basically checks if the value of temp lies between 10 and 20. We'll do 20 and we'll do and temp is less than equals to 30. We'll do the same here if the value is greater than 30. If the value is greater than 30, then it will basically say it's cold. So let's try. It's cold, as you can see. It works. It did not go to any of these if and elif statements. Now, the final topic for conditional statements will be the nested if statements. So let me comment this and come down and put a heading saying nested if nested conditional statements. Conditional statements. So what are nested conditional statements? So now, up until now, we have used if, elif, and else, right? Now, nested conditional statements, or we can say nested if statements, basically mean if statement inside another if statement. We can understand it by a small program, small and simple program, that is user login. So we'll basically build a simple user login program. So first, we'll have to take email of the user. We'll take the email of the user saying input, enter your email. We'll ask the user for their email and password, saying input, enter your password. Okay, so we'll make correct email. We'll make another variable that will store the actual correct email. So let's suppose the correct email is codin@gmail.com, and the correct password is, let's say, pass123 again. So this is our correct email and password. Okay, so now what we'll do is basically use the if statement to check the email and correct email and password to correct password. What we'll do is basically if email double equals, so that is if email is equal to correct email. Now we have checked email, right? We also have to check the password. Now what we'll do is basically inside this if statement, we'll make another if statement saying if password is equal to correct password. So first what we did is basically check the email and check the password. Okay, so if email and password both are right, we will say login successful. Okay, but what if password is not correct? Let's say the user entered the right email and accidentally inputted the wrong password. So what we'll do is in the indentation of this if statement, which is the inner if statement of email, we'll do else print password incorrect. So what we'll do is basically if email is correct, so it will go inside this if statement because, you know, user entered the right password and this will return true. This if statement will get executed. After that, it will check if password is correct. If it isn't, it will not go to this block of code and will basically run this else statement, which will say password incorrect. Now we'll put else here in the indentation of the email. What if user entered the wrong email at the beginning? We'll basically say email is wrong. Okay, or we'll say, you know what, we'll say incorrect email. So let me summarize the code again. We made the user enter their email and password. We declared another two variables saying correct email and correct password that store the correct email and correct password. We checked that email is in fact correct with email by using if statement. Now if email is not correct, it will directly show that, and it should show incorrect email. If the user entered the right email, this block of code, which is inside the if statement, will get executed. But since it's nested conditional statement, we have another if statement that is checking if password is correct. So if the password is correct, it'll basically just say login successful. But if password is incorrect, as you know, this if statement has indented with this else statement, it will show password incorrect. This is the whole logic behind the code. Let's test it. First, we'll put the right credentials, saying codin@gmail.com, and the password is pass123. As you see, it says login successful. But let's say I entered the wrong password and the right email. So I'll do codin@gmail.com, but I'll do pass1234. As you can see, it says password incorrect because since we entered the right email here, it got executed, and this if statement got rejected because we entered the wrong password. So this was for today, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button and actually subscribe to the channel. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. We all know how to print something in Python. You use the print function and print whatever you want, right? But here's the deal. What if I told you to print this 10 times? You would do it by copy pasting it. 50 times? Or even 1,000 times? Would you copy paste this 1,000 times? Of course not. There's a much better way. Welcome to the 6th episode of Python Beginner course. Today we'll be unlocking the power of loops, your secret weapon to write efficient and powerful code. So let's get started. So today's topic is loops. So what are loops in Python? Loops in Python basically means if you wanted to execute like a single or block of code multiple times, you can use loops. Like for example, let's say I have a code, hello world. So let's say I need to execute this 10 times or 50 times. If it were like 5 times, okay, you'll just copy paste this, I get it. But what if this was like 50 times or 1,000 times, right? That's where loops come in. So there are two types of loop in Python. One is for loop. Another is while loop. What is the difference between these two? We'll get that in a minute, okay? To use for loop, what you have to do is use keyword for. You have to use a loop variable, which is, let's say I took I in this case, and I'll give a range. I in range, let's say 1 to 10. I'll just print I. So as you can see, it printed from 1 to 9. So you might be thinking, even though I took the range 1 to 10, why did it print up to only 9? Because 10 right here is exclusive. This will not be counted in the loop. So if I wanted to print the value from 1 to 10, I need to give a value right after 10. So I'll give it 11. So as you can see, it prints from 1 to 10. Now let's try to understand the loop that we made. So we have a start. We took the value of the range to be 1 to 10. So this is the range of I, the loop variable. So the program stops at one point. So the program stops specifically when i's value reach 10 in this case. So between the range of 1 to 10, it will print every single value of I because we printed I, right? So after printing I, it will restart the loop. So at the beginning of loop, the value of I will be 1. So in beginning, the value of I is 1. So it prints 1, goes back to the loop. So after that, the value of i's increase from 1 to 2. It always increases from 1 to 2 unless we have a specific modification. So value of I is now 2. The current value of I is 2. It prints I because 2 is in fact in the range of 1 to 10. It prints I, which i's value is 2. It prints 2. So we have 1 and 2. Goes back and i's values increase from 2 to 3. So since 3 is in fact in the range of 1 to 10, it will print 3 and I'll go back. So like this, it will print from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It will stop at 9 because 10, as we know, is exclusive. When i's value is 10, it will stop the loop. So here, the loop stops. And since we don't have any other code in our program, the program stops. So let's come back again here. So in the range, we have passed two values. One is 1 and 11. So it means 1 to 10 because 11 is exclusive. So by default, the value of I, which is from 1 to 10, will differ by 1. So in the first iteration, it will be 1. After it will be 2, 3, and so on. So what if I want the i's value to change by 2? So I can do that by passing another value, which we call a step. So if I do 2 here, default value is 1. If I run this, it will give me the same results. Like it will print from 1 to 10. If I give a different value like 2, it will start updating the value of I by 2. So in the first iteration, it will be 1. And in the second iteration, it will be not 2, it will be 3 because it will change the value by 2. So as you can see, it prints from 1, it skipped 2 and prints 3, skip 4, 5, and so on. Another thing I want to teach you guys is the break and the continue. So sometimes in loop, we need to stop the loop before it reaches the end of its range. That's where break comes in. So here, let's say I want to stop the loop when the value of I reaches 5. So I can do if I reaches 5, I can do break. If I do this, when the i's value reaches 5, it will not print I, but literally break the loop. That means the loop will terminate. What break does is basically just stops the loop immediately. So logically, it should print the value 1 and 3 because we have increased the value of I by 2 and we have stopped the loop when the I value reaches 5. So as you can see, I am correct. So it prints 1 and 3. So let's remove the 2. So it'll print 1, 2, 3, 4 because this time we have increased the value of I by 1. So it will print 1, 2, 3, 4. But when the value of I reaches 5 here, we have put a condition. If I equals to 5, break the loop. So another thing that I want to talk about is continue. So if I put continue here, basically what happens is it basically skips the turn of 5. So continue basically just skips the iteration and just move on to the next one. So if the value of I reaches 5, it basically says to continue the iteration to the next one. If I run this, as you can see, it will print every single number except 5 because we have skipped the turn of 5. So I hope you understood for loop. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Let's move on to while loop. So while loop is a loop that runs according to a condition. Before the loop starts, you need a starting condition. This is usually a variable that controls when the loop should run. So the variable I'm using will be I and its value will be 1. So I'll do while I is less than or equals to 5. So what it means is basically the loop will run as long as the value of I is less than or equals to 5. So I'll print I. So let's see what happens if I try to run it. So as you can see, it infinitely prints 1. That's because we never increase the value of I. In for loop, it automatically increased the value of I by 1. But while loop doesn't do that because we have to manually increase the value of I. Here I can do I equals I plus 1. So what it means basically is take whatever value of I, add 1 to it, and that value will be the updated value of I. Now if I try to run it, it will print from 1 to 5. In the same way, let's say I want odd numbers from 1 to 10. I will increase the loop from 5 to 10. So it will run until I is less than or equals to 10. When it reaches 11, the loop will stop. So I will increment it by 2 because if I increment it by 1, it will just print from 1 to 10. Now if I do I equals I plus 2, it will give me all the odd numbers because first I value will be 1. After that, when it increases, it will be 2. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. So that's how it works. Now let's try to break the loop when the value of I reaches 5. So I can do that by using the break statement that we learned earlier. I can do if I reaches 5, break the loop. And increment the value of I by 1. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. And when it reaches 5, the loop will break. Likewise, let's try to use a continue statement as well. So if I put continue here, now if I put continue here and run the code, it will result in an infinite loop. Because when the value of I reaches 5, it will just keep continuing and it will never reach these statements. So it'll never increment, right? To fix it, I'll also put the increment inside this if statement. Now if I do that, as you can see, it prints every single number except the number 5 because we have skipped the turn by using the continue statement. And that is it for today's video. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions regarding to the lesson, please leave them in the comments and I'll be sure to actually answer almost every one of the questions. And don't forget to check out coding.com for more interactive courses and also to get a certificate. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Did you know that lists and tuples can make your Python code faster and more efficient, but choosing the wrong one can slow you down? Welcome to the 7th episode of Python Beginner course. Today we are diving into lists and tuples, two essential data structures that every beginner must know. By end of this video, you'll understand how they work, their key differences, and when to use each one. Let's get started. Okay, imagine this. You're going grocery shopping and there's two main things you want to get. What do? You make a list. So, just like in real life, we also have lists in Python. So, what Python list does is basically you can use it to store multiple values in a single variable. For example, let's make a variable here. And you start the list by using a big bracket. And you store multiple values like this. Now this right here is a list. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the values are stored in a single variable, that is A. This is what you called a list. So let's go to computer screen and actually use the list in action. So let's make a list of the numbers 1 to 5. To do that, I will declare a variable to store the value and we'll start the big bracket. Then we'll put all of our values separated by a comma. As you can see, just like this. We can also print this value. If you want to, we can just print A and it will literally just print the list. Now let's try to understand what is an index in a list. So index basically means position of elements in a list. So imagine a list which has first three numbers, 1 to 3. So the position of 1, the value 1 will be 0 because index starts with 0. The value after that will have an incremented value which will be 1. So it's 0, 1, 2, and so on. If the list continues, that is. Now, if I want the value 1, I can use the index to get the value 1. So if I wanted the value 1, what I can do is use this index. I can do A, bigger bracket, 0. If I do this, it will give me the value 1. Let's try it. So here, let's try to print the value 1 from this list. I can do A, bracket, 0. Since the index of 1 is 0, let's print this, and it will give me the 1. Similarly, I can print other values, like far away from here. Now, index starts from 0 to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also do backwards. So if I wanted to print the value 5, we can do negative. So it will be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if I do -1 here, if I print this, it'll give me 1, which is A0. And A -1 will give me the last value of the list, which will be 5. Now, lists are mutable, meaning it can be modified. So I'll write here, mutable means modifiable. So we can modify our list however we want. So we can do A, let's say we have a list 1, 2, 3. If we wanted to insert the number 4 at the end of the list, we can use a predefined method in Python called append. So how to use it? So basically we can do a dot append the number we want to append, that is 4. And the new list should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try it. Here we have the list, our predefined list, so I can close that. Let's do a dot append. Let's not append a number, let's append a string. So I'll append an apple. Let's print the updated list. As you can see, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's an apple. Same way, I can also remove this apple. If I do, now after printing this, I'll do a dot remove. I'll do apple and print a. If I do that, first it appended apple and printed it, so it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is our already put value in the list, and apple that we appended. Now after that, it removed apple from the list and we again printed it, so we don't have apple here. Now likewise, let's say I want to insert some values at specific indexes of a list. So let's make a list first. This time we'll make a list of fruits. So apple, banana, there's cherry. So we have a list of apple, banana, and cherry. Let's say I want to insert guava at the index 1, which is the second position in the list. I can do that by using the method insert. So I can do a dot insert. First will be the position, the index, which you wanted to put the value. So here it's 1. Use comma and put the value. So we have guava. After that, let's print the list. And as you can see, the guava has been inserted. You can also use the pop method to actually remove the item from the list. The difference is that when you use the pop method, it actually removes the last item from the list. Let's see. So it should remove 5, as you can see here. Now let's move on to some other useful list methods. So the first I want to talk about is len, which returns the actual number of items in the list. In this list, we have total of 5 items, so it should return 5 when I do print len, and we'll pass the variable of the list. As you can see, it returns 5. Next one is reverse. So reverse method is used to reverse the list. So if I do a dot reverse here and print a, as you can see, it reverses the string. So lychee is at the first, guava is at the second, cherry is at the third, banana is fourth, and apple at the last. So it basically just reverses the list. Now the final list method that we'll learn in this video is the sort method. So sort method basically just sorts the list. So in this list, we already have a sorted list because I made it like that. But let's say we manually unsort it. I will put apple at the last and guava at the first. And I'll just interchange banana and cherry. Like that. Put cherry here. Like that. And change it like that. So here we have an unsorted list. We can use a dot sort. And if we print a, so it will just basically sort the list by alphabetical order because we have a list of strings. As you can see, apple, banana, cherry, guava. It sorts it by alphabetical order. Now that was for the list of strings. What if we have a list of numbers? Let's say we have 2, 5, 7, 1, and 3. So here we have an unordered list of numbers. You can also use sort, and it will sort it by ascending order. If we print this, as you can see, it's sorted by ascending order. So that was it for the list. Let's move on to tuples. So tuples are basically similar to list in Python, but the main key difference is they cannot be changed, hence they are immutable. They cannot be modified or altered once declared. Now, to make tuples, we use parentheses, right? As for list, we use big bracket. For tuples, we use parentheses. So let's say A equals 1, 2, 3. So this right here is a list. So you cannot alter or modify a tuple. So there are only a couple of tuple methods that you can use. The first one is index method that returns the index of any specified characters. And another is count that tells you how many times a given value has been repeated in a tuple. So let's move on to VS Code and actually explore these tuple methods. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier is you can use the index method to actually check the index of a given value in list or a tuple. So let's first do with the list, because since I forgot, this is very important. So if I wanted the index of 2, what I can do is basically print a dot index, you use small bracket, and we can use like 2. So it should return 1. As you can see, it returns 1. So we can do the same with tuple. So let's convert this list into tuple by adding the parenthesis. Now this is a tuple, this is not a list. So you can check the index of a given value in a tuple or a list by using the indexed method. As you can see, it returns the index. Now another list method that I mentioned was how many times a given number has been repeated. We can check that by using the count method. So let's keep the 2 twice. There are 2 2's in the tuple. So if I do a dot count and give the value 2, I should say it has been repeated 2 times. Let's increase the number of 2's. There are 3 2's now. As you can see, it will return 3. So that's it for the video, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions regarding to this lesson, please leave them in the description box below, and I'll do my best to answer every single one of them. And please check out coding.com for more interactive courses. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Picture this. You're sitting at home and you're too lazy to cook. What do? You order in. With one click on Uber Eats or DoorDash, your food magically arrives at your doorstep. But ever wondered how that works behind the scenes? I welcome you to the 8th episode of our beautiful Python beginner series, and today we'll be learning about functions. So let's get started. So let's first understand what are functions, right? Functions are reusable block of code that is made to do specific task. For example, let's say we are making a code for sum of 2 integers. So what we'll do is to create 2 variables first with a value, and we'll store that in another variable and print that variable. This is how we wrote the sum of 2 integers till now, right? What if you had to do this 10, 20, 30, 40? You'll not write this same code over and over and over again. That's where functions come in. With functions, we can create a function that will add two integers, say 2, 3, or I'll give a separate variable. So we will create a function that will just add two numbers. So whenever we want to add two numbers, we'll just call this function. So let's say 2, 3, it will directly give us answer without having to write the whole big code over and over again. So there are two types of functions in Python. So one is built-in functions. Built-in functions. And another is user-defined functions. User-defined functions. So built-in functions are the function that Python gives you already when you download Python. So for example, we have used print function. This is also a function. Let's say another function is type function that gives us the type of the variable that you declared or type of the value. Another function that you might be familiar with is the length function that gives us length of list. So these all are built-in functions. So we don't have to make them, we just call them. Another type of function is the user-defined function that we make. So it'll be made by us. Let's move on to computer screen on how we make them. Okay, I'll teach you how to make functions, what are the syntax, how to call them, and everything. Now let's see on how to define a function. So to define a function, we use the keyword def. So this is used to define a function. And we give a name of our function. So I'll give add, since I'm making a function that adds two numbers. So here now we have to pass a parameter. So I'll give a and b. So what are these? These are basically the numbers that you pass when you're calling this function. If you don't understand it, don't worry. I will get to it in a bit. After that, you start the colon to, again, make sure this is the block of code inside this function. From here, I will just type some code. And that's it. Now what we can do is call the function. So here we'll pass two arguments. That is 2 and 3. What are arguments? Arguments are the numbers or values that you pass through the function when you're calling them. If we print it, nothing happens. Why? Because we forgot to print it. Let's print it. As you can see, it comes. So let me explain step by step on what is this, how are the things, what is this guy saying. So this is the function that we declared. This is the add function that has two parameters. Why? Because we were actually adding two numbers. So we need two numbers. So this is what we call a parameter. So these are the values that get passed through the function to do some kind of operation. You pass these values inside the function to do some kind of operation with those values. Now, since there are two values, these are called parameter. Again, keep that in mind. When we call the function, okay, so I'll tell you one thing. If you just declare a function and don't call it, nothing will happen. Okay, you need to call this function. So again, let me call the function. And let's say you call it. Now here what is happening is it is getting called, but you forgot to display it. So you wrap this inside the print function. Only then it will be displayed. So here, so basically what return does is basically when you call the function, this function gets executed. Without calling a function, Python will just ignore this function. So technically, when you run the code, the starting code that will be executed will be this, because this will get ignored. Okay. When you call the function, it finds the function and goes to the function. So 2 here will be passed through A, and 3 here will be passed through B. So after that, this function will get executed because it got the two parameters that it needed. Now here I have returned A plus B. So here I don't need to explain what is this. It's just the sum of a plus b. Now what return does is basically tells whatever value that you're returning gets sent back where it got called. So it gets sent back from where it got called. First, function gets called, goes to the function, and after that, so here we have passed two parameter, 2 and 3. So this 2 will go from here, 3 will go from b, and when you return a plus b, the sum, which is a plus b, gets returned back to here. So after that, we printed the sum. Now, keep in fact, we have 2 and 3, so the sum will be 5. The value 5 will get returned and take the place on add to 3, which is the function, and when you print it, it will give us 5. That's how a function works. Now let's talk more about this thing return here. So return basically means, again, I've explained it, that returns the value to the point where it got called from. So what if you returned multiple values? I will rename the function to add and sub. I will again change the name from here. So this is the function that adds and subtracts two numbers. So if I call it, and as you can see, I have returned two values here. Let's see what happens. As you can see, it actually returns in the form of tuple. So this is what happens when you return multiple functions. It gets returned in the form of tuple. So here we have returned two values. But what if you didn't return anything? So in Python, there are two types of functions. One is value returning functions, another is non-value returning functions. So here, if I create a function, and let's say it's welcome that just says welcome to this video. So I'll quickly make a function. I will not pass any parameters, so I'll just print welcome to this video. So if I try to call this, let me comment this part out. Let me comment these. And let me quickly call this. So let's run it. So as you can see, it says welcome to this video. So let's see what happens if I try to check if it's returning any value. As you can see, it says none. First, it printed welcome to this video and it gets returned, but we didn't return anything, so it returns none. So technically, all non-value returning functions are still value returning because it returns the value none, but we call them non-value returning functions. Next topic are arguments. So in Python, there are total three types of arguments. One is positional arguments, default arguments, and the keyword arguments. So the thing that we use here, these are called arguments. Again, as I said before, arguments are the values you pass through a function where you're calling it. So these are what we call positional arguments. These are passed in order and their position matters. If you pass 3 here, this will take the value of A will take the value of 3, and B will take the value of 2. If you swap these two values, the values of A and B will also differ when actually making any calculations inside the function. So let's say I do print A and print B here, just to show which value is getting passed. If I print this, as you can see, A is taking the value of 3 and B is taking the value of 2, so it's 3 and 2. So what if you want to change it? By not changing the position of arguments, you want to change it on how it gets passed. So let's say you want the B to take the value of 3 and A to take the value of 2. You can do that by using something called keyword argument. Now, using keyword arguments, you can specify argument names when calling the function. So let's say that I want the B, which is in the second position, but I want the B to take the value of 3. I can do B equals 3, and I want the A to take the value of 2, so I'll do A equals 2. So this is what we call keyword arguments. This makes the order irrelevant and improves readability. If I run this, as you can see, A is equals to 2 and B equals to 3. Last and final type of argument is default arguments. So Let's suppose that the value of b here, if the user provides the value of b when calling the function, if he provides the value of b, then it's okay. It will take the value of b. But what if the user didn't provide the value of b? So in this case, we can use default arguments. So I can predefine a value here, let's say to be 5. So as long as the user provides the value of b, it will take the value of b that is getting passed as argument. It will be 3. But let's say I didn't provide the value of b. So here, it already took the default argument value, which is 5. So it took the value 5. Now a, we specified value 2, so it's printing 2. So here I have a small problem for you guys, a mini task for you to complete. Pause the video right here and try to do it yourself and leave the code in the comments below. Are you done? Let's try to do it. So here it says create a function that takes 2 numbers as parameter. So let's do it. We'll define a function. Let's say task. And it says to take 2 parameters. So I'll do a and b. What else does it say? Returns the product and quotient of those numbers. So I'll do return. Now product means multiplication of 2 values. So I'll do a into b. And I will return. Now another thing it says to return is the quotient. So I'll do a divided b. It will return the quotient. So this right here will be returned in a form of tuple. So here I need to call the function. So I'll call the function and I'll pass. What number should I pass? Let's say I'll do 4 and 2. Here, if I try to print this, as you know, it returns in a tuple. But I want the values to be printed in separate. Like I want the values to be printed separately. What do? I store the returned value, which is the task. As we know, it gets returned here. I want to store it in a variable. We have to store it in a variable. So I'll do result. So I'll print the result. So you know that returns in tuple. So result here right now is a tuple. In the last video, we learned how to use index in a tuple, right? So here it will return a tuple. So let me comment and write a note. Let's say product and quotient. So these I want to print it separately. So I can use, in the last video, we learned how to use tuples and how to print the values from tuples using index. So we'll do print result, which is the tuple that's getting returned. And we'll do index 0, which has the product here. This is product is in index 0. So I printed the index 0. I will print result, which is quotient and which has index 1. So let's print it. As you can see, it is getting printed separately. And there you have it, functions in Python. If you found this video helpful, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check out coding.com for more interactive courses on different programming languages. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye. Remember when we learned about lists and tuples? They're great for storing data, but let's be honest, sometimes they can be a bit of a headache. Searching for a specific item in the list? Slow. Dealing with duplicate values? Chaotic. What if I told you there was a better way to handle all of these data? That's where dictionaries and sets come in. In this video, we'll see how these two powerful tools can make your data handling faster, more cleaner, and more efficient. Let's dive in. Now, dictionary in Python is similar to a dictionary in real life. It has values stored in key value pairs, which allow you to quickly look up values according to their keys. Like how dictionary in real life has words and meanings. Dictionary in Python has key and values. For example, let's say I have a key name, and its value could be anything. Let's say codon. We have a key age, and let's say the age is 12. This is key value pairs. This right here is key, and this is values. This is how values get stored in a dictionary in key value pairs. Dictionary does not have indexes, does not have index, and also can't have duplicate keys. You cannot put duplicate keys. Let's say, for example, let's say I want to put two names. You cannot do it. Now let's move on to creating dictionary in Python. To create a dictionary, first you need a variable to store the dictionary in, and you start with a curly bracket. Let's say our key here is name, and let's say name is Anthony. And let's say you separate the keys and values by a comma, and let's say his age is 12, and he lives, which is his address. Let's say he lives in California. So this is a dictionary. It has values in key and values, right? Every single thing here is in key and value. So let's try to print this dictionary first. So just to see how it looks, it's the same, obviously. Now, how do I access specific values in the dictionary? Let's say I want to access Anthony, his age, or his address. I can do that by just simply adding a large bracket and let's say his name to the name of the dictionary, by the way. And let's run it. As you can see, it returns Anthony. Same way, let's pick his age and his address. You can also use another dictionary method called get. You need to use small bracket for this, or parenthesis. Let's run it. As you can see, it still returns the same values, but what's the difference? Okay, so main difference between using get and just using the normal keys is basically when you use get, let's say you access a key that does not exist. Let's say addresses. The addresses key does not exist in this dictionary. It will just return none. Now what happens if you just use the normal method of keys, right? So if you just use this, it will just result in a big error. So to prevent your code does not end up crashing, you can use get. It is more recommended instead of using this method. Another fun fact about dictionaries is dictionaries are mutable. So you can add stuff, remove stuff, and update stuff. So here, let's say I want Anthony's phone number. I want to add Anthony's phone number to this dictionary. I can do that by using dictionary's name and big bracket and phone number. Let's say his phone number is 123. Now if I print the dictionary, you will see Anthony's phone number in the dictionary. As you can see here, let me close this, restart. As you can see, phone number has been added to the dictionary. Now, another thing is how to update values in the dictionary. Let's say Anthony moved out and he moved to New York. So I have to change the California here to New York. I can do that by A, and using the key here, I'll put the key, which is address, and we'll change that to New York. If I print this, as you can see, his address has been changed to New York. Now for the fun part. How do you remove stuff from the dictionary? So to remove stuff from dictionary, there are two ways. Number one is the pop method, Another is the del method. So first let's look at the pop method. So let's say I want Anthony's age removed completely from the dictionary. I can do that by a.pop and the key of the age, which is age itself. So let's run it. As you can see, the age key and value has been removed from the dictionary. Another is the del method. So use the keyword del, a, and you do age. As you can see, it still works. The age has been removed from the dictionary. Now let's move on to other interesting dictionary methods. So the first one is the method that prints all the keys, specifically keys of the dictionary. So we're talking about name, age, address. So a.keys, this is how you get the keys of the dictionary. We have printed it, so let's run it. As you can see, name, age, address, these are the keys of the dictionary. Same with the values. If you change the keys to values, it will list all the values. Anthony 12, California. So another one is to print all the items in a tuple. So if you use a.items here, it will give you a list of tuples. So what is a list of tuples? It's basically tuples stored in a list, as you can see here. So basically what it does, it changes all the key and values into tuples, different tuples, and store all the tuples in a list, as you can see here. This is specifically useful when you're looping through a dictionary. Now let's move on to iterating through a dictionary, or to looping through a dictionary. To loop through a dictionary, we use for loop. Generally, for loop is used. You can also use while loop. So we do for key and value, because we're iterating key and value in a. So if you do only a here, this will throw an error, because you cannot iterate dictionary as it is. So we learned a method, items, right? We use this because this returns a list of tuples as we discussed. So if we had to print this, so we'll use an f string here. We'll use key and values. So let's print this. As you can see, it says name Anthony, age 12, and address California. That means it's looping through the dictionary pretty well. So let's say I remove this. What happens? Oh no, value error. You cannot loop through a dictionary as it is. You need to use the method items. Now that is pretty much it for the dictionary. Now let's move on to sets. Now let's move on to something a little bit different, that is sets. So sets in Python are similar to lists and tuples. The main key difference is that they are unordered. That means the items might appear in any order when you print them out. The other key difference is that they cannot have duplicate values. That means sets do not allow duplicate values. They don't have indexes, so you cannot access the items like you do in lists and tuples. But they are in fact mutable, so you can still add and remove stuff from the sets. So let's see an example. So let's create a set of fruits. So let's name the set fruits. That is our variable. We start with a curly bracket again, but we don't store values in key value pairs. Okay. So here, let's say I have an apple, I have a banana, and oranges. So this is a set of fruits. Let's print it. As I said before, sets are unordered. Let's see what it means. That means it can appear in any order when you print them out. As you can see, I put apple, banana, and orange. But it prints oranges, banana, and apple. Completely random. That's what it means to be unordered. So, as I said, sets are mutable. That means you can, in fact, add and remove stuff. So, let's add another fruit. Let's say fruits.add. This is the method you use to add stuff in sets. So, let's say I want to add lychee. Print out the updated set. As you can see, lychee has been added. So another thing you can do is to remove. So let's say I want to remove apple because I don't like apples. Let's do fruits dot remove, and let's remove apple. I forgot to print this. So let's print the updated again. I will comment this. So here, too many sets. As you can see, apple has been removed. Now, another fun thing you can do is to check if an item exists in a set. To do that, you basically kind of use the concept of looping, but not loop. So you do print if apple exists in fruits. If apple does exist in fruits, it will return true. For now, let's remove apple. And let's print again. As you can see, it returns false. So you can actually check if an item actually exists in a set. This is another fun thing you can do. So here I have a small coding challenge for you guys. Pause the video and try it yourself. Done? Let's do it. So here it's saying create a dictionary for a store inventory where keys are the names of the products, values are the prices of those products. So it's basically saying to create a dictionary of products and their prices. Then write a program that asks the user for the product name and prints his price. So for that, let me first create a dictionary. So let's say our dictionary name is product. And you can also make a dictionary like this to make it more prettier. So here, let's say that our first product is apple. Let's say apple is $2. And another is banana. This says $3. And let's go more bold. Let's go cereal. Cereal is very expensive, $10. And another is milk. When you have cereal, you do need milk, right? Let's say milk is cheaper, $5. So these are our products. So we have to let the user enter a product. So we'll do user. I'll put input. We'll use the input function and enter your product name. And I'll make sure this is in lowercase just to make sure it also handles the case sensitive part. I'll use the if statement here. So I'll do if user, the product that user enters, is in fact in our dictionary. Now, if this checks if the product entered by the user is in fact in our dictionary. If it is, then print. Now again, I will use an F string here to, let's say here, we'll do user, the value entered by the user, and its price. So I'll do product and the user. So user is in fact the product that he entered. So this will give the values, which are the prices. What if the product that entered by the user does not exist? I'll just let the user know that it does not exist, saying the item you searched does not exist. Like this. Let's try to run it. So it's asking the product name. Let's say Apple. You can see it actually says is $2. Let's run it again. This time let's search for a product that does not exist. So cookies. It does not exist. As you can see, it says the item you search doesn't exist. And that is for the video. If you have any questions regarding to how to use dictionaries and sets, please leave them in the description box below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And also don't forget to check out coding.com for more interactive courses and also to get a certificate. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to our 10th and final episode of our Python beginner series, and today we'll be building our major first project, that is a to-do list. So let's get started. So at first, let me give you guys a generic idea on how are we gonna build this project. So I will tell you one thing. Before I start building the project, I highly recommend you try building one yourself. This will improve your problem solving skills. So our to-do list, right? Our to-do list should do the following. Number one, add task. User should be able to add their task. And they should be able to view their task. And they should be able to mark it as complete, or mark the task as complete. So mark complete. I'll just write this much. And the last thing they should be able to do is remove the task from remove the task. Okay. So we're gonna do this by using list. We'll make a list for task. And for adding task, we'll do append, we'll do remove for removing, and you will use loop, which is for loop, to view the task. With saying this much, let's start coding. So let's start to make our to-do list. So to make our to-do list, first we need to do is to make an empty list. So what this empty list will do is basically store all of our tasks. We're talking about cooking and cleaning, etc. But instead of having to manually add them like this, we'll let the user add it. So we'll keep it empty. So next thing we have to do is to make a function. First function that we will make is called welcome. So this function is very straightforward. This function will just welcome the user to our, there'll be a welcome message, welcome to our to-do list. Plain and simple, to-do list. So if I do that and print all of the options that we can give the user. So the first option will be add a task. And another will be, let me copy paste this. It'll be easier. So there'll be a total of 5 options that user can select. Let me quickly change these. And the second will be to view the task. So it will be view the task. Another is check the task. Actually, I'll rename it mark the task. This is more straightforward. And the last option kind of is removed the task. And this last option will be to exit out from our program, because we will be using an infinite loop. So we need some sort of option to exit from our program. So bonus tip, you can add a line between the welcome message and our options to make it more cleaner. We'll also add one here. So if I call this function, as you can see, it looks way more cleaner. Now, this is the game plan. What we will do is like how we made a function for welcome, we'll make individual functions for adding, viewing, marking, and removing the task, just to get a vague idea on how real programmers program on Python. Okay, so the first function we'll do is adding task. We will define it as, I don't know, add task, I guess. So this function is very, very simple, right? We have a list where we'll append all of our tasks. So if you want to add the task, what we'll do, we will append it. No rocket science here, right? So we will take the task. To take the task, we need to give a choice for the user to input their task. We'll call input function and say, enter your task, sir. Politeness, you know, be a gentleman, guys. So after that, what we'll do is basically task dot append, and what we'll append, our choice, which is our variable that is an input from the user. Now we will leave a sweet message for the user saying, let's say task added successfully. You know, very gentleman. Be a gentleman, guys. Success. I forgot the spelling of successfully. No. Okay, there we go. No, this is our first function. Let's move on to another one. Now, another function that we'll create is the viewing the task, right? Here, what we'll do is we know that all of our tasks will be stored in this list, like saying, for example, cooking or like cleaning, you know, you get it, right? Now, to show this task, we need to loop this task. So viewing the task means, you got it, looping the task. We'll create a function here saying viewing the task. We'll loop the function. I'll do for task. This is an individual task on individual iteration. It will take individual task, right? In task. From our list of tasks, we'll take one task. And what we'll do is to print the task using f-string. What we'll do is basically, now here's the deal. Here, the task, well, let's say I want to print like this. We'll say task 1, and we'll print 1. If there are 4 tasks, you'll say task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4. For that, I need to dynamically change this numbering, right? It should dynamically change. What we'll do is make another variable. Let's say I. Let's say the initial value will be 1 because let's say listing starts from 1. So task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, you know. I will put this in f-string like this. I'll say task 1, and task 1 will be this. So this will be iterating the list of tasks. So the task, and that's it. So what we'll do is to increment this I, because if you don't increment this, it will just be 1, 1, 1, 1, because this I will never change, right? We'll do I equals I plus 1. Now, another thing you can do is basically to write this in a different format. You can also do this. It basically means the same thing, okay? So this is our viewing task. So let's see what happens, right? Let's say we have 2 tasks here, and let me call this function. Let's see how it prints. I just want to see. Okay, here we go. As you can see, it says task 1 cooking, task 2 cleaning. That works. Let's move on to another function. Now another function is the function that marks the task as complete. So I will name it mark. And here we will ask the user for which task they want to complete. So here I'll do task number and do integer. This is a number, so I'll put as integer. And I'll do enter your number or task number, I guess. Here, I have to do a small adjustment. I have to reduce the value inputted by the user by 1. Why do I do that? So let's say the user inputted 1. The user inputs 1 here, right? Now, 1, for him, this is the first task. For the user, he meant the first task. But for us, this value is the index of our list. And index starts with, index starts with 0. So let's say user inputs 1. If you don't do this, index 1 is the second value on the list. So it will choose the second value on the list. So we have to do -1. After that, we will do if task number is greater than 0 to make sure the user does not put like negative numbers or even 0 because task number starts with 1. We'll do and make sure again that the task number that user input is less than the length of our list. Because let's say we have 2 tasks here, like cooking and cleaning. Let's say this is task 1, this is task 2, right? Let's say user inputs a task 3 here. He can do it, but it will just throw an error because there's no task 3. To make sure it doesn't happen, we still have to check this condition. And after that, we'll just we'll just do task. Now we'll mutate the value, whatever value the user chose, we'll mutate the value, which is task number here. So this will return the value on the list, right? What we'll do is we'll mutate it by using fstring to make our life easier. Again, we'll do task number, and we'll mark it as complete. We'll just say we'll add a complete. That's it. Let's say if the user finished cooking and he wants to mark it as cooking is completed, we'll just say cooking dash completed. Now we'll leave a sweet message for our user saying task marked as complete. That's it. And for the else condition on this if condition, we'll do is invalid task number. If user accidentally enters invalid task number, we'll just show him this. That's it. After that, our mark function is complete. Let's move on to another function. Now, another function is the delete function. So I'll do delete function, and we will first ask the user for which task they want to delete. So I'll do just copy this because it's the same thing. And again, we have to check if the user entered the wrong task number that is greater than 0 and greater than the list of our task, length of the task. Same thing. And here, instead of writing this, I'll do task.remove. This is the remove method that we already talked. So I'll just copy this. Now, since this will not affect this, because as you know, these are local variables, so they'll only work inside this function. And I will do that, and that's it. We'll just print task deleted successfully. No rocket science here, guys. We did the same thing. We took input, checked the value, and we'll just use the remove to delete the value. And I'll do else. Again, I'll print invalid number, sir. That's it. And last and final function for the video will be the main function that will just combine every other individual function that we created. So first, let's welcome the user by calling the welcome function. And we'll create a while loop just to, infinitely run the program until user exits from the program. We'll do that, and we'll do choice just to, take the input for which function they want to, call, I guess. So we'll do choice equals to input, and we'll do enter your choice. And that's that. After that, we will check if he entered 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. We'll do if choice double equals to 1. Now, for choice 1 is adding the task. So we'll just call adding the task inside this if statement. We'll do elif, and we'll do the same for rest of our if statements. We'll do 2, and we will call the second, so that's viewing the task. So let me copy the name. I'll do that again. So if elif choice is equal to 3, we will call the mark task. We'll call the mark function here, like that. We'll do elif again, choice is equal to 4. We will call the delete function. And if choice is equals to 5, that means user has enough and user wants to exit from our program. What we'll do is we'll print a sweet message here again. We'll do thank you for using the program. There you go. And we'll break from, we'll return from the function directly. We will return from this function. If we'll do break, this function will still be running. If we'll do return, it literally exits from the program. Okay. We'll do return, and we'll do else. We'll do print. If he chooses out from these 5 things, is invalid function, like it's invalid input, right? So we'll do else invalid input. So what happens is if user accidentally enters the wrong value, it will just loop back to here and again asks the choice. That's what we're trying to create. Okay. So here, and that should be completed. Let's call the main function here. So let's try to run our to-do list, shall we? So here first, let's say I want to add a task. So we'll add 3 tasks. So we'll be cooking, add another, cleaning, add another, eating, I guess. I will view the task. As you can see, task 1 cooking, task 2 cleaning, task 3 eating. I don't know. Let's say our cleaning, I have cleaned my room. That's it. I want to mark it as complete. I'll do 3. And I'll do 2. As you can see, task marked as complete. I'll do view the task again. As you can see, task cleaning completed. Let's say I want to remove this task. I accidentally put there, Let's go 4. And let's do 3. As you can see, task deleted successfully. Let's see if it's deleted or not. It is. So let's exit from our program, and yeah, thanks for using our program. So that is the to-do list that we made for this video. So if you enjoyed this video and had fun coding alongside with me, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And please don't forget to check out coding.com for more interactive programming courses, not only with Python, if you want to learn C++, Java, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, it's all in there. And yeah, with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So in this video, we'll learn about how to work with files in Python and how to open them, read them, write them. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's first understand what is actually file handling. So let me give you an example. Ever played a game that stores your progress or use an app that remembers your settings? That's file handling in action. File handling is how programs store and retrieve data from the files, so information does not disappear when the program closes, right? In Python, we can create files. This can be any files, let's say txt, text files. We can also create CSV files. We can create JSON files, etc. Right? Now, we can also open them. I should have wrote this earlier, but you can open files, and we can also write to the files. Write to files. And we can also read the files. And we can also modify the files. We can basically do every single thing with the files. So in this video, you'll be learning all of these. So let's get started. Now, before reading, writing, and modifying the file, you have to open the file. So in Python, opening a file, you can basically understand it like a book. To read a book, you have to first open it. And then you can read the contents of the book, correct? That's the same for Python. Python first has to open the file, and then you can do whatever you want. Let's say you want to read, write, etc. You can do all of that, but first you have to open the file. To open the file, there are two functions. I mean, they are both open. This is the function you'll use. But if you just say open, it will open the file. But at the end of your, let's say whatever modification you do to the file, you have to close it. You have to remember to close this file. If you just forget to close your file, it can just pile up in your memory. It will just be very inefficient. To fix this, Python has a built-in another open function, which is called with open. So with this, you don't have to close the file. Whatever code you write under it, right? Whatever code you write under it, after you finish writing this block of code, it will automatically close the file. So you don't have to remember like every time to close the file. So let's go to VS Code and see how it actually works. Now let's start by creating a file. So I'll create a text file named sample.txt, and I will write hello world in this file. After that, let's try to open this file from the Python. So for that, what we'll do is use the open function. We'll create a variable that will represent the open file. We'll use open function. So there are two parameters you have to pass through this function. First one is the name of your file. In this case, ours is sample.txt. And second one will be the mode in which you want to open the file. So first, we'll learn how to open file in read mode. So we'll do R. R is for read mode. And then here we will now read from the file. So there are three methods we will learn, three read functions that we'll learn in this video. One is read function, and one is read line function, and another is read lines function. There are a lot of different types of methods in Python to read a file, but for text file, we'll just learn these three in today's video. Now we'll create another variable here, which will store the red string. We will do A is our open file. So we'll do a.read, and we'll print B. So if we print B and run this program, it should print hello world. So let's see. As you can see, it prints hello world. Boom. Now here, we forgot to do one thing that I said was very, very important when opening a file. Do you remember it? If you answered closing the file, then you are correct. we forgot to close the file. So what we'll do is do a.close. And with that, file is closed, as you can see. So always remember to close the file. Okay. What we'll do here is learn about other functions like read. We already learned what is read. We'll also look at read line and read lines. So what are the differences between these three functions? So if I add multiple lines, let's say hello, I'll say hi, I'll do again goodbye, I guess. There are a total of 3 lines in this file. If I use the read function, as you can see, it will print all 3 lines at once. If I do read line now, oh, look at there. It just prints 1 line from the file. What if I increase the amount of read lines? Let's say B versus C equals a.read line. I'll do print C. As you can see, it prints the second line. So you can use read line when you want to individually read first line and then second line, then third line. You can, do that. Now, what are read lines? What is read lines? Now, if I do read lines, close this and cut this. So here, what read line does is basically to create a list of all the lines. So basically it takes all the lines and put them in a list, as you can see here. Now, as you know, /n is used to skip a line, so it will put them into another line. So it is also stores the /n as to make sure it is in second line. Okay. Now I can iterate through lines, as you know. We can do 4 lines in, line in B. You can print line like that. If I do that, it will individually print all of the lines. Now, another method I talked about is the with open method, where you didn't have to close the file. So let's learn it. For that, you will cut the variable name and put with in front of the open function, and then put the variable name at the end saying as a. So this will be the variable name. So this variable will represent the open file. And I'll put a colon after that and push the readline function inside the open function with open function, saying this readline function is inside of with open function. So after opening the function readline, and when this block of code gets executed, which is inside the with open function, just automatically close the file. So I'll cut this. And after that, let's print B here. Let's print B. As you can see, it works the same way. So we can also loop it inside, saying if I cut this, do 4 line in B and print. We'll do print B, line. It will just work the same way, because this for loop is inside this file which has been opened in current moment. After the loop has terminated, this will come out of the loop, and since there's no other code after the for loop, it will just automatically close the file. Now, another thing you should know is when you're reading from a file, you should make sure that file exists. Like in this case, our sample.txt does exist in the same folder as this file, correct? What if I delete this file? If I delete this file and try to read from a non-existent file, see what happens. It throws a file not found error. So when you're reading from a file, always make sure that file exists. Otherwise, it will lead to an error. Okay? With that said, let's move on to how to write to a file. For that, let's recreate the sample.txt here. This time, I will not write anything directly because we'll be writing through our code. we'll use with open because now that I've learned with open, use it. We'll do sample.txt, and this time we'll open this file. This time we'll open it in write mode, so W for write mode. There are other modes, but let's not talk about that in this video, okay? And we will do as file, and I will do file dot write. So write is the function that is used to write to a file. There are others like write. In this video, we'll talk about the write function and the write lines function. So we'll talk about these two functions in this video, okay? We'll do write, and let's give what we need to write. Let's say we want to write hello world. With that said, let's make sure it's executed. So we'll do successfully written or something like that. And we'll run the code. As you can see, it says it's written. Let's see, it worked. Let's say we want to write something else like hello world, this is code in. We'll run it, and as you can see, so you noticed one thing. It completely overrode what we said. Let's say we do subscribe to code. Okay, if you do that and run this code, it overrode the previous string completely to the file. So that's what write does. You have to remember that when you open a file in write mode, completely overwrites the existing text file to whatever you wrote from the code. You have to always make sure that, okay? So for the write line method, basically what it does is, let's say you have a list of things you want to write. So say list to write. We'll create a variable, and this will be a list that I want to write. So the first thing that I want to write in the first line, so you have to take individual lines. We'll do this. This is the line 1. We will give it the new lines special character to make sure it is written in the next line. Otherwise, it won't be written in the next line. Okay, I'll copy this entire string and I'll paste it 2 times. Because I'll make 3 lines. So this will be line 1, this is line 2, and this is line 3. So now what I'll do is put, instead of write function, I'll use the write lines function and pass our variable from it. If I do that, as you can see, it says it's worked. So as you can see, it worked. I didn't change it. Okay, let me recreate that. Let me recorrect that and cut. And now, as you can see, it is written. That is how write lines works, right? It basically writes from the list. There is no write line in Python, okay? There is write and write lines. So write lines, basically what it does is write individual lines of string from a list to the file. Now, another thing I forgot to mention is whenever you're opening a file from write mode, let's say if the file that you're opening, if it doesn't exist, it would throw an error in read mode, right? But when you open it from a write mode, even if the file does not exist, it will create that file. As you can see, a sample.txt has been created here and will write whatever the user told it to write. Same goes for write function. Let's see, I use write and write hello world and delete the existing sample.txt here and open it. It will automatically create a new sample.txt just to write whatever user told it to do. So the last file opening mode I want to talk about in this video will be the append method. So remember in list, when we use the append method, it basically adds an item to the end of the list without removing the existing elements. That's same in the file opening method. So when we use the append mode, it does not overwrite the file completely. So write mode overwrites whatever that is written in the file. right? Let's say you're making a game and you want to save your scores, and you don't want your previous scores to get wiped out. That's where you use the append method. So we change the W to A for append, right? We open it and we have appended hello world, but let me cut this and add a new line special character just to make sure the whatever we're printing, gets separated by each line. So we will run this and go here. It has been appended. Let's run it again. As you can see, it did not override the previous text that was already written in this file. So it's the same as the write mode. If the file does not exist, it will recreate another file of the same name, as you can see here. And if we keep running this, it will keep adding the whatever text that we have wrote to the file. Okay. We can also do the write lines. So let's change this to write lines and copy this, paste here. And if you do that, as you can see, it is writing new text without deleting the existing text. And that's it for today's lesson. If you understood how to open a file, read from a file, write and append to a file, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions and doubts regarding today's lesson, please leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Ever written Python code, hit enter, and boom. Error? Yeah, me too. It's like Python is personally offended by my logic. But don't worry, today we're tackling Python errors and exceptions, what they mean, why they happen, and how to stop them from ruining your day. So if you tried of debugging like a lost soul, stick around and by the end of the video you'll be learning everything there is to know about errors and exceptions. So let's get started. Okay, so in Python, there are two types of problems you can face while executing a code. One are errors, and others are exceptions. Now, what is the actual difference between these two? So basically, errors are those problems that are caused due to something wrong in the code. Let's say those typically are syntax errors, where you mess up syntax of particular line in the code, and indentation error. Okay, where you also again mess up indentation on one of the code. So what happens is when these types of errors occur, program will not execute. So it completely stops the execution. The program will not execute, right? But in terms of exceptions, exceptions are those problems that you run while code is actually running. So let's say you take a user input. Okay, I'll show you example when we move on to VS Code, so don't worry. So let's say we are taking an input and let's say this is an int. So let me just quickly do that. Let's say this is an int. We are taking an input as an integer, right? Here, what we did is we took an input as an integer. But what if user inputs ABC here, which is not an integer, which is a character? What happens? A value error. So it throws a value error because the user inputted a character inside the int input, right? So these problems are called exceptions. Okay, this may be another example of this is when you try to divide something by 0. So let's say you do 2 divided with 0. Now this will result in 0 division error. Okay, there are a couple different types of errors. We'll get to that in a bit. I'll show you a couple different types of exceptions in Python, so hold on a minute. But I want to actually explain what are exceptions. Okay, so these are what we call exceptions, which are syntax-wise are correct, but we still run into problems because they are not logically correct. Okay, they are not logically correct. Okay, so these are what we call exceptions. So let's move on to VS Code and I'll show you how errors and exceptions work. Okay, now let's understand what is the difference between errors and exceptions. So let's say I print something, right? Let's say I print hello world. Now here it prints hello world, nothing new, right? But what if I miss one of the quotes like this? If I run this, it will throw a syntax error. Your program will not execute if you have a syntax error and an indentation error. So let's say I make an indentation error. If I do if true, that means this if statement will be universally true. If I do print something like hello world, okay? If I do hello world, it will print, oops. As you can see, it will print hello world. But what if I do an indentation error? As you can see, it will print indentation error. That means program will not execute if there is an indentation error and a syntax error. So this is errors, right? Now, what are exceptions? So let's say I take a user input. As I mentioned before, if I do input, and let's say enter your number, I guess. If I do this, and let's say I just print A, just for good measures. If I run the code, let's say I give an integer value, like 1. It will print 1, correct? But what if I give a character value, like code in? Keep in mind, this is an integer input, okay? Now, this is what we call an exception. What is the difference? The main difference is when you run into an error, your program will not execute unless you fix the syntax and the indentation error. However, if you run into exception, as you can see, the code still runs. The code is running perfectly. But the thing is, there is just an unexpected error in the code when I put a character because it cannot read characters since it's an integer input. If I put integer here, that will just work perfectly fine, right? Now, this is what we call an exception. This is the main difference between errors and exceptions, okay? Now, the reason why these exceptions are very problematic is because when exception occurs in Python or any kind of program, it basically crashes the code. And it's not a good thing that a code crashes, am I right? So in this video, we'll be talking about how to specifically gracefully handle any kind of exceptions that may occur in a program. And we do it by using 3 keywords, or we say 3 methods, we can say that. That is try, except, and finally. So in this video, we're looking at all 3 of them. Now let's get a glimpse of when to use try and except. We'll talk about finally in a bit. So first, let's talk about these 2, right? Let's say that you have a program like this one where you know if user does not enter his input correctly, it may lead to an error. Like let's say I do enter your number. Pretty standard program, pretty standard code. We have done it many times in the past. But there's a deal. There's a small problem with this code. If I run it, it runs. It asks me for my number, so I'll give it 20. As you can see, it prints 20. Okay, working perfectly fine. But what if I do code in? I don't give it a number, I give it a character. As you can see, it just results in exception. Now, this is what we call an exception, okay? Because the program is running, there's no syntax errors in the code. But the thing is, it's not logically correct because I gave a string in an integer input. Now this is what we call exception. And try except help us to actually gracefully handle these kind of exceptions. Now what we'll do is put try. So this is basically a block of code. So try is basically the block of code that you want to execute where you know there might be a potential risk of code not functioning correctly. Now we'll do except. What happens is, let's say user inputs a string in this line, right? Now it cannot print p because it will result in error. So what we do is, if this line results in an error, we'll basically catch it, right, with except. And we'll tell the user, saying in this block of code, which is except, I will tell the user that that was an invalid input. Now if we do that, let's say if we run the code again, let's do it. Now let's say I give something again, coding. Now it will tell me that that was an invalid input. As you can see right here, we didn't run into big red error. It basically displayed whatever we catched inside our except block. So this is what exception handling is. Now let's move on to the types of exceptions. Now there are a couple types of exceptions that I will talk about in this video. There are more exceptions than that, but like we'll get them slowly in upcoming videos. So the first one is the zero division error. Okay, so this is zero division error. So when does it occur? For example, 10 divided by 0. Now mathematically it will result to infinity, but in Python it will just result to error because it's not logically correct. Okay, so this will result in zero division error. Now another is index error. So this error occurs when you try to access an item in a list that does not exist. So let's say A is the list of 1, 2, and 3. Now if you try to access an item that does not exist in a list, for example, this is index 0, index 1, index 2. So if I try to access an item of, like, let's say 3, this item right here does not exist in the list, right? There's no item that has index 3. So this will result in an index error. Now, same way for dictionary, let's say you try to access a key that does not exist. For example, this is a dictionary of, let's say, name, and that is coded. Okay. So let's say I try to access, age. Now, age key does not exist. This key does not exist. So this will throw an key error. Okay. Same goes for type error. So when does a type error exist? Now a type error occurs when you try to operate two different types of data types. Let's say you're doing an addition and you add, let's say, a string, which is, let's say, text in this case, with a numeral. All right. So this operation cannot be performed because a string and integer cannot be added, right? So this will throw a type error. Okay. Another is value error. We already talked about this. So this is an error that occurs when, let's say, you enter an input. Let's say there is an input of integer. Okay. Something here. And you give a string to this input. Let's say user enters a string like we talked about earlier. This will throw a value error. Now, these all are the errors that we'll talk about in this video, but there are a couple more, even I think more than these errors. There are total 4 or 5 more errors in Python beside this. So we'll talk about those in future episodes, okay? Now, the reason I showed you the different types of exceptions is because you can individually handle these all exceptions. Let's make a small program of division, okay? So we'll do a equals, we'll take an integer input from the user, we'll do input and enter your number. Okay. So we will divide 10 by a. So let's say c equals 10 divided by a. Right? And we'll print a. Sorry. Like that. And what we'll do is do an except block here. And first, if the user enters a string value or character value here, this will throw a value error. So what we can do is tell the user except value error. If a value error occurs in the try block, we can tell the user, please enter an integer. Okay. We can tell the user that. Now, we have handled the error in this line of code, right? What if user enters 0 here? 0 is also an integer, right? But if 0 comes to this line of code, this here will throw a 0 division error. So what we can do is do another except block. This time we'll catch 0 division error and we'll print telling the user the number cannot be 0, right? After that, let's run the code here. Let's try to run it. Sorry. We'll do that. And let's say we give 10. Oh, I accidentally printed a. Okay. Let's give the value 10. As you can see, it will divide the number. Now let's give an integer value here saying codin. It will say please enter integer as we mentioned in this except block. And let's give the value of a as 0. Now this will say the number cannot be 0. Now finally, let's talk about finally. So finally in Python is basically a block of code that will run regardless if a code runs into an exception. Let's say we do finally the code has executed. Okay, we can type this. Let's say we do the number 10. If the code does not run into error, it will still run, right? As you can see here. If the code does run into an exception, let's say we type code and it will run into the value error, it will still run. Let me just comment this part out and again execute it, right? To show you guys. Let's give code in. It will throw a big error saying, value error and whatever. This code will still run. Okay, so finally is a block of code that will run regardless if a code runs into exceptions or not. Now, finally is especially useful for resource management tasks. Let's say in try block, right? Let's say you're opening a file. So let's suppose this is opening a file and you didn't use the with open method. We learned this in the last video. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. So let's close this and basically just say this is the finally code, right? You can just f.close or whatever. You can close the file in this finally block of code. Closing the file. So this is one of the examples for using finally. It's also used to, let's say you're working with database and in try block, you're establishing connections and communicating with databases, and in finally block of code you can just disconnect, or you can use to closing the database connections. Now let's move on to raising an exception. So we know up until now that exception occurs when there's something logically wrong with the code, correct? Now sometimes we have to manually raise an exception if something goes wrong in the code. So let's say what we can do is Let's suppose we are creating a program that takes the user input's age and prints it. That's it. Simple code. But there's a small catch. Let's try to make it. Let's do try and age equals int because age is an integer. So let's do enter your age. Okay. Now here's the deal. We know age cannot be less than 0. Age is always greater than 0, correct? Let's do if age is less than 0, raise value error. So what we're doing is basically if user inputs an age that is less than 0, we create manually a value error. And that value error says age cannot be negative. Okay. And after that, we'll just simply print age. If age is greater than 0, this will get printed. Simple. Now we'll do except to catch the value error that we raised in a given condition as value error as E. So what is E? E is basically variable that stores whatever that has been raised. So in this case, it will store this string right here. Age cannot be 0. Now we'll just simply print E like that. Let's try to run this code. Let's first give an age that's greater than 0, like 10. And it'll print 10. Simple enough. Let's try to run it again. And this time, let's give an age that is less than 0. So -1. As you can see, it basically displays whatever that we wrote. Age cannot be negative. I hope you understood what a raise does in Python. If you didn't, please comment down below. And that's it for today's video, guys. If you found the video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also check out coding.com for more interactive coding courses. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So this will be our final episode of our Python beginner series. In this video, we are wrapping it all up with a fun and practical project, a command line expenditure tracker. You'll get to use everything we have learned so far: input, output, loops, conditional statements, function, file handling, and even exception handling, and even a touch of creativity. By end of this video, you'll have a working program that lets you add and view your expenses, remove entries you don't need, save your data to a file, and even calculate your total expenditure. So with that said, let's start the video and also end the series on a strong note. So with that said, let's start to build our personal expenses tracker. So in the last project video, that is episode 10, if you haven't seen that, please check it out. Link will be in the video description. I will leave the link to our Python beginner tutorial playlist. So if you want to check that out, link will be in the video description. So in that project video, we made separate functions for all of our things that we wanted to do in our program. In this video, obviously in this project, we'll be doing the same. So let's go ahead and make our first function. So before that, I will declare a variable that will say file, right? We have learned file handling, and in the last project video, we didn't incorporate file handling. This will be personal expenses tracker that you can actually store values so you don't lose them even if your program is closed. So it permanently stores your expenditures. So this will be our string, so it will be our name of our file. So let's say I'll do expenses.txt. We'll create expenses.txt later, so don't worry. Actually, I'll just create one right now. So this will be expenses.txt. So in this text file, we'll store our expenditure as, so let's say food. So this will be our category and comma, and let's say the food we paid $100. So this will be our format of storing into our text file, and then we'll read it off from our Python code and we'll just play around with it. Okay, so let's cut that. So with that said, let's create our first function. So in the last video, we created a function called welcome to actually welcome the user and just show a bunch of options to choose from, right? We'll do the same in this project. So we'll do welcome. This will take no parameters. And this will just say, first we'll do print. And this will just say welcome, or we'll say personal expenses tracker. We'll just say that expenses tracker. We'll create a line like we did in the previous project video just to make it look cool, like that. And then we'll print. So the first thing that we need to do in our program is to add our expenditures, right? So we'll do, we'll select 1. So when user selects the number 1, it will just let the user add stuff in our, in our file to just sum it into our expenditures. So what we'll do is add expenses. We'll do that. And the next will be, so next will be to view the expenses. When you add the expenses, also let the user to view the expenses, right? So we'll do view expenses like this. I'll just copy paste it just to make my life a little bit more easier. And another, that should be fine. So this will be 2. So 3 will be to see the total expenses of everything, right? Let's say we have food, clothing, shopping, like electricity bills, everything, and it will just sum the entire expenses into one, saying this amount. Okay, so we'll say total expenses. And the last is, what if user accidentally inputted the wrong expenses? So we'll also let the user to remove expenses. Okay, what if user accidentally wrote something or just, wants to remove it? And the last and final, in the last work video, we said that this was the option to just go back and exit our program. So that will be the same for this project. So we'll do 4. I forgot to change the serial number. I'll do 5. When the user selects 5, it will exit the program. So this will be our welcome function. So another thing I'll do is also create another line like this. So if I do that, this should be fine. Okay, so let's call this welcome function and see. Yeah, pretty cool. So this looks very professional, right? Not that much, but like just pretend it's professional. So for the next function that we'll be creating is load. So this will be a function that will just load all of our, values from the file and return a list of dictionaries. You'll see what I mean, okay? We'll make an empty list called expenses, like this. We'll make an empty list that is called expenses, right? So here we go. Here's the deal. We'll do try, and what we'll do is basically with open the file. So in this case, it's our file. It's our file, I forgot. So this is our file. We'll be opening it in read mode, right? Because we want to read from the file. We want to get the values from the file, right? We'll be looping the file saying for line in file. Okay, I forgot something very important. That is as F. We can do that, don't worry. That should be fine. So we'll do for line in F, because I've already made a variable called file, right? So I'll just do F. So for line in F, what we'll do is basically the line, right? We'll be first stripping it. So this is a function that basically cuts all of the empty parts in the right and the left, right? So let's say your variable is something like this, right? we'll do this and do something called codon. It will basically remove this empty space, or it will just cut this empty space into this. It will just make this. Okay, that's what strip does. Okay, so with that, I'll also make another. I'll just also do another that's called split. We'll also do split. We'll split it through comma. So what it will basically do is take the comma and split the string into two. So let's say our expenses.txt has a value called food, comma, and $100, like 100, right? This will be the category and this will be the expenses. So it will basically split these two values by this comma. The split function will just split the value, right? So this, what we'll do is, after this, we'll store this value into a variable. So let's say that variable is category and another, because we have two things that we want to store, that is category and expenses, right? What we'll do is category and amount, because the second value will be amount. Okay, so this will be the format. We'll be dynamically storing them using another function, but for now we haven't made it, so I'm just showing you manually how it will be. Okay, so after that, we'll do is expenses dot append. We'll do is, now for the most important part, we have an empty list that's expenses, right? We want to append a dictionary to this list. So this will be a list of dictionaries, right? So it'll be a dictionary. So how will this dictionary work is, we have our category. So this will be our first key, right? And obviously category will be, in this case, category, that is this, that is getting pulled out from the file, right? We are basically reading from the file. The second key will be amount. That is very true because we have amount, right? So the amount will be this. So this will be an individual thing. So this will be food and 100. This will be category, food, amount, 100. And this whole will be a dictionary, and it will get appended to a dictionary. So how will this list look is basically like this. After that, it will comma. So this will be a list of dictionaries like this. There will be multiple dictionaries inside this list. Okay, it'll be like this. So after doing that is, now that's job done for the try block. Now, why did I do except block? Why did I use try except? What if the file does not exist, or there's some errors reading off from the file? That's where excepts come in. We learned exception handling for this purpose. So the first exception is file not found error, right? What if the file just does not exist? We'll just let them know that file doesn't exist, and that's it. File does not exist. In case of other exception, we'll do except exception as E, and we'll just print E. So this is an exception that is except file not found error. Any other errors except file not found error will be cached by this exception, that is exception class. We haven't read object oriented, so just know that any other exception except file not found error will be cached by this exception block. With that said, our first non-welcome function is done. So the next function that we'll be creating is the save expenses. We have already created the load expenses function that will basically load whatever expenses or whatever things that is written inside our text file and return a list, right? List of dictionaries. But what if we want to write to the text file? To get a value, we have to write through our Python code, right? That's where this function comes in. So what we'll do is save expenses here. That will be the name of this function. And this will take a parameter called expenses. Again, this will be the list of dictionaries that we'll be appending, right? After that, what we'll do is open the file, because we have to open the file. We'll use it with open because we just don't want to bother closing it every single time, right? So I'll send two parameters, that is file, that is the name of the file, and this time we want to write to the file, right? So we'll be opening this file into write mode. So it'll be W and as F. So F will be the variable that will represent the opened file, right? So first, before writing to the file, we have to know what are we writing, right? We are writing the list of dictionaries. So whatever things that are written inside this empty list, which again, it's empty now, but it will be full when we are just appending our expenses and expenses, like all the expenses, right? We'll do is we'll loop this list saying we'll do E in expenses, right? So this will represent the individual dictionary, because this is a list of dictionaries, right? It will represent individual dictionaries. So in individual iteration, this E will hold one single dictionary, right? What we'll do is for E in expenses, we'll do F dot write. So here we go. Here's the deal. We have to understand one thing. We are loading. We know that we want the values to be stored in this format. So we can use this line right here to split from comma, strip down to remove the blank spaces, and then store to this variable. So we have to store in this format. So we have to understand that while writing to the file. So what we'll do is create an F string. So what I'll do is E bracket category, right? So what are we basically doing is basically whatever values are inside the expenses, right? We are writing this category key. So basically this will return the value, right? We have learned this in our dictionaries, sets and dictionaries, right? That this right here is basically, it will return the value, right? So we'll do and we'll comma, not inside here, and we'll do comma, and we'll just not use any things, even though we have the strip function to remove these blank spaces, but we'll still just make sure we don't do it. They'll do comma and do E. I forgot curly braces again. They'll do E big bracket, and this time we'll use amount. So this will be basically a function that will be storing whatever values that we append from the dictionary to this empty list. It will just be writing this function. So whenever we have to write something, we'll just call save expensive function. It will just save us a lot of time. Now that we have made our two very important functions, we can start making the actual functions that will help for the program. That is add, view, total, and remove, right? For the first function, that is add, we'll just say add expense, right? This will again take our existing list of dictionaries as a parameter. What did it do? Oops, okay, that was not supposed to be like that. Okay, so what we'll do is basically ask for an input, okay? To adding an expense, we have to ask the user what to append, right? We'll do category equals to input. What we'll do is basically say that enter your category, whether it be food, shopping, electricity bill, light bill, water bill, and next is amount. The upper one will be category. This will be our amount. We'll do enter your amount. After that, we will do a small thing, right? You know that amount is not in string. This is taking input as a string, but amount can be anything, right? Not anything, is either float or int. This time we'll do float. We'll force the user to enter a float number or an int number, right? But if you watched exception handling video, you know that this line can cause errors if the user enters anything except a number, right? So because of that, we will use try except. We'll push this into our try block for now, and we'll handle the exception later. So what we'll do is expenses dot append. Since it's a list, we can append values, right? What are we appending? We are appending a list of dictionaries, so this will be a dictionary. So this will be an individual dictionary, right? What we'll do category, and this will be our category, comma, next is amount, okay? After that, it will be the amount. Simple enough? Yes. After that, we have appended to this expenses list of dictionaries, right? But we haven't saved it in our text file. Yes, yes. But we made a function called save expenses that basically loads or opens whatever file that we have opened and loops it and then writes to the file. So what we'll do is call the save expenses function and pass this list of dictionaries because this is the latest updated. So we just appended a thing, we looped the whole list and just saved it to our file, right? Easy enough. We also have to handle the exception, so we'll do except. So as you know, this right here is basically our block of code. In this try block, we know that error can occur in this given place, right? If user enters a wrong, just let's say user says enter a string in this amount input, right? It will just throw an error. But we know that it will throw a value error if you watched our exception handling video. If that happens, we'll just let the user know that they have inputted the wrong input. So it'll be invalid input, invalid amount input, right? With that said, it should handle the exception. Just in case if any other exception arises, we'll do exception as E that will basically handle any other exception that gets thrown into our program. With that said, that should be done. So that's our add expenses function. Now, next function is the view expense function that will just basically just loop through our existing list of dictionaries and just, prints all the expenses. We'll do def view expense. After that, it will again take our list of dictionaries as parameter and then say first we'll do is /n to skip the line. We'll do expense. This will be just saying these are our expenses, okay? Saying just let the user know. After that, we'll do we'll do E in expense. But we'll also do another thing. We'll make a variable called I, which will start at 1. Okay, so it will basically be using as a serial number, just to make everything look more neater. So we'll do print. This time we'll use an F string actually to make our life easier. What we'll do is I, so this will be our serial number, right? And we will put a dot after that, just saying like 1 or 2 or 3, just numbering to make it look cleaner. And after that, we'll do is E. We'll start curly bracket and we'll do E and we'll do category like that, right? And we'll do equals to, this category is, we have this category and you have expenses this. So I'll copy this, paste here and change the category to amount. So this will be our view expense function. Another thing that we'll do is also make a print just to skip it and just to make a new line, just to make everything look cleaner in our console because we're still using CLI, okay? So the next function that we'll be creating is the total expenses function. That will basically sum all of our expenses into one big number. We'll do def total expense. Okay, for a second I forgot the spelling of expense. Okay, so after that we'll do is define this function. So how this function will work, okay? We'll have a variable total, right? Initially, the value of this variable will be 0. right? And then we will loop our, list of dictionaries, right? What we'll do is basically we'll do total, we'll do sum, and we'll do we'll do amount. Are you getting my point? Take whatever value of the is, right? Of the value of is, sum it to the total, and at last, just print the total saying, we'll do f string, your total expenditure is, and we will basically print the value total. This will be our total expense function. So let's see if this total expense actually works, right? What we'll do is basically make a list of dictionaries, a temporary list of dictionaries. What we'll do is make a category, right? We'll make a category and that will say food. After that, let's say, and the amount, after that, the amount is, let's say, $150, right? And we'll copy this and we will just, let's say the second is shopping bill, right? And that is around $300. After that, what we'll do is pass this that is the list of dictionaries, into our total expense function. Let's call it, see what happens. As you can see, it says the total is $450. So that is our total expense. We also can put a dollar sign like that. That should be fine. Actually, I can also do this here, saying the expenses right there. It will just make the thing just look a lot more cleaner. After that, it should be fine. Let's move on to our next function. So the next function that we'll be creating is the remove expenses function. So this will be a function that will basically remove anything that the user wants to remove, the expenses they want to remove, right? So they'll do def remove expenses. I'll do expense and we'll pass our list of dictionaries through it. Again, we need it. After that, we'll do is if expenses, we'll put a not in front of it. So what I'll do is if, that is expenses, the list of dictionaries, if it is empty, then we'll just let the user know that this is empty. So we'll do slash, there are no expenses to remove, right? We'll print them this message, and since we don't need the rest of the code because again, we don't have anything to remove, we'll just return from the function. So you might be thinking, what does this do, right? So if I do if expenses, so this if statement, what we'll do is if whatever variable that is passed through it, if it exists, that means if the value exists, then it will return true. But since if our list, that is, our list of dictionaries, if the list is empty, this will return false. But since we want it to return true when it's empty, we'll do not. So we'll basically revert. It will just invert the value to false to true. Okay, simple stuff. And we can also put this statement in our view task function, right? Since again, if there are no, expenses to, view, we can also do this, saying there are no expenses to view. That's it. That should be simple and easy. So now what we'll do is get a user input, right? Like we did in our add task, we also have to take the user input to which tasks to remove, right? We'll do number, because so how this will work is we'll do int input, enter your number. If I do that, and okay, so this will be when you do a view task, right? Let's say user is viewing the task. What we'll do is we have this value called I. So it'll basically list to 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say user inputs 4, then it will just remove whatever task that is on the 4th line, right? That will be the functionality. That's how it works. But since we also know that, again, if the user inputs like code in here, it will throw an error. So we'll do try. We'll put this in our try block like that. There you go. Simple and easy. Another thing what we can do is call the view task function that will, we'll call the view task. I said view expenses function because user has to know all of the tasks from which he wants to remove, right? So this is a very convenient method to just let the user know all of our expenses, right? We'll do number and we'll check if the number, again, if the user inputs anything except an integer, it will just basically throw an error, right? And we have cached it in our except block, which we will do in a bit. We'll do int, we'll do number is greater than equals to 1. I did that because let's say user inputs 0. I mean, it's still an integer, but we don't have a tax 0, right? We'll do number and we'll do number greater than equals 0 and less than equals to the length of our expenses, okay? That we know that this thing right here, it will basically return the length of our list, right? So if it is greater than equals to 1 and less than equals to, I forgot the thing, never mind, there you go. If the number, whatever the user inputs, is less than equals to the length of our list of dictionaries, and then only we can, again, I run the code accidentally, I'm sorry for that. We'll do removed. We'll store the removed expenses, right? We'll do is expenses.pop. We are basically using the pop function to, remove the expense. We'll do num minus 1. So you might be thinking, and why did we do number? I forgot. We have used the number. We'll do number minus 1. So why did we do number minus 1? We know that we are using a list of dictionaries. We are using a list, right? Lists have indexes. What do index start from? You're correct. Index starts from 0. But user does not know that, right? He will just put 1 here. Let's say user inputs 1, right? For him, 1 is the first expense in his order, that he sees when you're calling the view tab, the view expense function, right? But for us, 1 is the second item in the list because 1 is, it will be 0 and 1. So that'll be the second item in the list. So we'll just have to subtract whatever number that has given by the user by minus 1. So let's say if they input 1 here, which for them is the first item, we'll just say minus 1 and it will just convert it into our list index, okay? That's how it will work. So after that, what we'll do is save expense. We'll just update the value, whatever value have we saved in our txt file like that. And then we'll do print. Now I'll tell you why did we store whatever value that we removed into our removed variable, right? So we know that this value right here, the value that we popped, is a dictionary because we have a list of dictionaries, right? This removed right here is a dictionary. So what we can do is do fstring like that. Sorry, we can do fstring right here like that, and we'll do removed, right? We'll do removed and we'll do category, right? Like that. So we'll do removed category and we'll do removed this. We'll just say remove this, and we'll also copy this again. We'll just let them know what they removed, okay? This is basically a cool way of making it user friendly. We'll do amount. There you go. There you go. That is our remove function. But we also have to account for our exceptions, right? What if user inputs less than equals to 1 or greater than equals to the length of our list? That we'll say is, invalid number. We'll just put that, we'll do a /n just to make it more formatable. After that is our except block. Because we are we'll do value error again, like we did in our add task, and we'll do print we'll do enter a valid number. We're just telling the user to input a valid number. We'll also use the skip line. And with that said, our removed expense should be finished. So let's move on to our final function, that is def main. So this will be our last function. What we'll do is first of all call our welcome function that will basically tell the user this, right? After that, we'll also put a /n just to make it more presentable again. After that, what we'll do is, actually, I don't think that will look it clean. I'll just put a print right here. So after that, what we'll do is we'll only add everything like we did in our previous project video. We'll do if statements, and we'll also use the while true, that is infinite loop, just to, make sure that programs does not stop in first iteration. It will just keep on going and going until the user wants to stop the program. So I'll do while true. And also before doing that, what I'll do is expenses equals load expense. So we have used our load function right here, which will basically take whatever value is which is already written in our txt file and return a list of dictionaries. So let's say you open the file again, which again is this time we have manual return thing called food 100, right? It will take the food 100 and format it in our dictionary and append the dictionary to our list of dictionaries. That's how it will work. So we have to use this. So this expenses variable will just hold our list of dictionaries. We'll do while true, and we'll do, since we already have given the user the choices because we have already incorporated that in our welcome file, or welcome function, sorry. After that, we'll do choice equals input, because we have to ask the user for inputs, right? We'll just say choose, why not? After that, we'll do if choice equals 1. So if the user inputs 1, we'll just call the add expense function like our thing right here. And we also have to pass the expenses right here. Expenses, because we have a parameter, we'll just pass our expenses like that, our list of dictionaries. And we'll do if choice equals 2. If the user inputs 2, we have to append our view task, right? We'll just do view expense, and we'll just pass expenses like that. We also have to use elif here. I forgot about that. There you go. We'll use elif right here. We'll do elif choice equals 3. And this time we'll do, since, what is in 3? Total. Okay. So I'll do total expense like that. That should be fine. We'll do elif choice equals 5. Sorry, 4. What am I saying? Okay. We'll do 4. We'll do, what's in 4 again? There you go. 4 is remove, right? We'll do remove, and we'll pass expense like that. And at last, we'll do else. If user inputs anything beside 1, 2, 3, and 4, we'll just say invalid input, right? And we also forgot to write, make another elif statement for break. So if choice equals 5, if the user inputs 5, that means he wants to exit from our program, right? So what we'll do is we'll print a sweet message for our user saying, thank you for using our program, like that, and then straight up return from this main function. With that said, it should be fine. Okay, let's try to call our main function. So another thing I saw in our code is that we did not add any user message after adding an expense, right? So what I'll do is say after saving it right here, we will print expense, sorry, expense added successfully. And with that said, we should be okay to run the code. Let's see. So first we'll add an expense. So I will choose one. Let's say I spend on food. I spend $150 on food and it gave me error. Okay, so what's happening? Non-type object has no attribute append. So I think I've screwed up somewhere on load expense. Okay, there you go. There's a mistake. So what I did was to declare an empty list that is expense, but I did not return whatever was the list, right? So that way, what happened was this load expense was returning none to this expense variable. So it would just like, if there is nothing, then what will it append to, right? So this append functions were not functioning correctly. So what I can do here is go here and just say return expenses like that, and it should be fine. Let's run the code again and say choose one. I'll do food again. I'll again spend $150, and after that it should append successfully. Let's see, there you go, it is appended. We can also view it. Let's add another before we view though. Let's say I went shopping and I spent $500 on shopping, right? And we'll do view. So it says expense, food, and I see another thing that I screwed up again. Okay, so let's fix that immediately. I mean, this is what programming is, guys. So when you're programming, you make mistakes and you fix the mistakes, right? Another thing I forgot to do here is to increment the value of I. So we'll just print I. Okay, so we'll do I equal, we'll do plus equals 1. So it will just basically increase the value of I by 1 every time. So let's run the code. Okay, there you go. So let's see the view task right here. It says food and shopping. So let's see the total. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay, so line number 19. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay. So I have to typecast this to float because, okay, here's the deal, guys. While coding, you get a lot of errors again. So what happened was in the load expense, when you're loading the values, right? By default, it loads to a string. But we have to typecast the amount to float, right? Because we have literally floats, right? So if I do that now it should fix all of the errors. I swear to God, if I get another error, I'll just puke. Okay, we'll see the 2 right there. It should work. And in total, there you go. It should show $650. That is $500 plus $150. So we will basically, let's say I want to remove this shopping. We'll do to remove, and it will show me the list. I will just remove 2. And there you go. We'll view the task again. There you go. That should work. And let's say I want to exit. There you go. I have exited the program. And let's say I empty out this list, right? And I try to directly view it. It will just say there are no expenses to view. And if I try to remove anything, it will say there are no expenses to remove. And that's it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed this video and building this project alongside with me and also getting a lot of errors in this process, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions regarding Python programming, feel free to drop them in the comment below. And with that said, I'll see you guys in another video. Bye bye.